I came home holding my 6-year-old daughter's hand. A police officer was waiting at the door. "We received a report that you kidnapped this child," I shouted. "She's my daughter." But when I looked at her, she stayed silent, staring down at the ground. I was handcuffed on the spot, and at the station, my wife visited me in jail, and a shocking truth was revealed. Chapter 1, The Accusation. The autumn air carried a chill as Dominic Voss walked up the pathway to his suburban home, holding his 6-year-old daughter Lily's small hand in his. They'd spent the afternoon at the county fair, cotton candy, carousel rides, and a stuffed unicorn prize that Lily clutched to her chest with her free arm. Her honey-blonde pigtails bounced with each step, reminding Dominic of her mother. Dominic noticed the unmarked police car parked across the street but thought nothing of it. After 15 years with the Tactical Response Unit before retiring to start his security consulting firm, police vehicles were just part of the landscape to him. As they approached the front door of their 2-story colonial, a man in plain clothes stepped forward from the shadows of the porch, badge already extended. "Dominic Voss?" the man asked, his voice carrying the practiced neutrality of law enforcement. Dominic nodded, instinctively pulling Lily closer to his side. "That's me. What can I help you with, officer?" "Detective Floyd Mason." The man's eyes flickered to Lily. "Is this Lily Voss?" "Yes, my daughter," Dominic replied, the first hint of unease creeping up his spine. "What's this about?" 2 uniformed officers emerged from either side of the house, moving with deliberate speed. Detective Mason's face hardened. "We received a report that you kidnapped this child from Oak Ridge Elementary School without authorization." The accusation hit Dominic like a physical blow. "That's ridiculous. I'm her father. I picked her up early for a dentist appointment. The school was notified." "Sir, according to the school and the child's mother, there was no appointment scheduled. You removed her from school under false pretenses." Dominic looked down at Lily, expecting her confused support. "Lily, tell them I'm your daddy." The little girl's eyes remained fixed on the ground, her small fingers releasing his hand. The stuffed unicorn dropped to the concrete. "Lily," Dominic's voice cracked with confusion. "Detective Mason, move forward. Mr. Voss, I need you to put your hands behind your back. This is insane." "I'm her father," Dominic shouted, his voice echoing off neighboring houses. "Lily, tell them who I am." But his daughter remained silent, her eyes downcast, her small body trembling slightly. "Sir, don't make this harder than it needs to be," Mason said, handcuffs already out. Dominic's military training kicked in. Assess the situation, evaluate options, calculate risks. 3 officers, his daughter present. No immediate means of proving his identity. Fighting would only make things worse. As the cold metal of handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Dominic watched a social worker emerge from another vehicle, approaching Lily with a gentle smile. "Sweetheart, your mom is waiting for you. Everything's gonna be okay now." Lily nodded, still not looking at Dominic, and took the woman's hand without hesitation. "What did you do to her?" Dominic demanded, as the officers began leading him to their vehicle. "What did you tell my daughter?" The last thing he saw before being placed in the back of the police car was Adrienne's silver SUV pulling up to the curb, his wife rushing out with a performance of panic and relief as she gathered Lily into her arms. Their eyes met through the car window. Adrienne's filled with what looked like genuine fear, Dominic's blazing with confusion and the first sparks of rage. As the police car pulled away, one thought crystallized in his mind. Something was terribly wrong with his family, and he needed to find out what. Chapter 2, The Revelation. The county detention center smelled of industrial bleach and desperation. Dominic sat in a hard plastic chair, his wrist cuffed to the metal table in the visitation room. 24 hours had passed since his arrest, and the charges were serious. Kidnapping, child endangerment, violating a restraining order he'd never known existed. When Adrienne entered, Dominic barely recognized the woman he'd married 12 years ago. Gone was the warm, artistic free spirit with flowing chestnut hair and paint-stained fingers. In her place stood a polished stranger, sleek bob, tailored blazer, face carefully arranged into an expression of concern tinged with fear. "You have 15 minutes, the guard announced before taking position by the door. "How could you do this, Dom?" Adrienne whispered, not sitting down. "Taking Lily like that when you knew." "Knew what?" Dominic interrupted, leaning forward as far as his restraints allowed. "Knew that my wife would accuse me of kidnapping my own daughter?" "What's happening, Adrienne?" She placed a manila envelope on the table. "The court granted my emergency petition 3 weeks ago. You were served the papers." "What papers? What petition?" The confusion in his voice was genuine. Adrienne's perfect composure faltered momentarily. The restraining order dawned. After what happened with Bella, after what the doctor said about you, Bella, Dominic's mind raced to his 16-year-old daughter from his first marriage. "What about Bella? I haven't seen her in months. You know, she's been at that special art program in Chicago." Something flashed in Adrienne's eyes, surprise perhaps, or calculation. She slid the envelope closer. "These are copies of everything, the restraining order, the psychological evaluation, the statements from Bella and her therapist." Dominic stared at the envelope, unable to reach for it due to his restraints. "What psychological evaluation?" "Adrienne, someone is manipulating you. Is someone threatening you? Is that why Lily wouldn't speak to me?" Adrienne's perfectly manicured hand trembled slightly as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a tell Dominic recognized from their years together. She was lying. The doctor diagnosed you, Dom. Paranoid personality disorder with delusional features. You don't remember the violent episodes because of the dissociation. Her voice was practiced as if reciting lines. You need help, not prison. My lawyer is working to have you transferred to Lakewood Psychiatric for evaluation. Dominic's military training had taught him to recognize psychological operations. This had all the hallmarks of character assassination, undermining credibility, isolating the target, creating a false narrative. Who's behind this, Adrian? Who are you working with? For a moment genuine fear flashed across her face. She glanced at the guard, then leaned closer. They're watching us. They're always watching. Before Dominic could respond, the door opened. A man in expensive suit entered, tall, silver-templed, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to power. That's enough, Mrs. Voss. As your attorney, I advise you not to continue this conversation. Dominic didn't recognize the man, but something about him struck a chord, a ghost of familiarity that he couldn't place. You're not her attorney, Dominic said flatly. Who are you really? The man smiled thinly. Raymond Kessler, Mr. Voss. I represent your wife's interests in this unfortunate situation. He placed a protective hand on Adrian's shoulder, lingering just a second too long to be professional. And suddenly, Dominic understood. The pieces clicked into place with devastating clarity. The unexplained business trips, the late-night phone calls, the gradual emotional distance. How long have you been sleeping with my wife, Kessler? Adrian's sharp intake of breath was all the confirmation he needed. Kessler's smile never faltered. I think we're done here, Mrs. Voss. The psychiatrist will evaluate Mr. Voss tomorrow morning. As they turned to leave, Dominic called out, Adrian, whatever they have on you, whatever they threatened you with, we can fight it together. She paused at the door, her back to him. There's something else you shouldn't know, Dom. Her voice was barely audible. I'm pregnant. With those words she walked out, leaving Dominic with the envelope and a cold, crystallizing fury unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The guard approached to lead him back to his cell. You can take the envelope. Alone in his cell, Dominic examined the documents. The restraining order was genuine, filed 3 weeks ago. The psychological evaluation was on official letterhead from a Dr. Valeria Montrose, a name he'd never heard. The most disturbing document was the statement from Bella detailing incidents of rage and violence that had never occurred. At the bottom of the stack was a small note handwritten, not safe to talk. Thereafter the program, Copper Rain. Remember Budapest? Copper Rain, the code name for a classified intelligence gathering operation he'd been part of a decade ago. An operation that officially never existed. Dominic laid back on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. His wife's betrayal, his daughter's silence, the fabricated evidence, it was all connected to his past. Someone had orchestrated this elaborate setup to discredit him, to lock him away where he couldn't interfere with whatever they were planning. They had chosen the wrong man to destroy. Chapter 3. The Past Unveiled. Dominic's arraignment came and went in a blur of legal jargon. His court-appointed attorney, a harried young woman named Meredith Powell, looked overwhelmed by the case, but fought admirably against the prosecution's request to deny bail. The judge swayed by the psychiatric evaluation, and Bella's statement ordered Dominic held for further evaluation. As deputies led him from the courtroom, Dominic caught sight of a familiar face in the gallery, Wesley Hammond, his former handler at the agency. Their eyes met briefly, Hemon's expression unreadable before he turned away, disappearing into the crowd. Back in his cell, Dominic closed his eyes, letting his mind drift back to the beginning. How he ended up here. The answer lay buried in the past he tried so hard to leave behind. Budapest 2014. The safe house overlooked the Danube. Lights from the chain bridge reflecting off the dark water. Dominic, then operating under the name Daniel Varga, sat at the surveillance console, monitoring chatter from a suspected weapons dealer's compound. Packages moving, came a woman's voice through his earpiece. Agent Adrian Lenore, his partner for this operation, was embedded as the dealer's translator. Copy that, Dominic responded, adjusting the audio feeds. Extraction point Alpha in 20 minutes. Negative, Adrian replied, voice tight. Something's wrong. Kessler is here. Dominic felt his blood freeze. Raymond Kessler was a CIA operative rumored to be running unauthorized operations, selling intelligence to the highest bidder under the cover of official missions. Get out now, Dominic ordered. Abort and go to Extraction Point Bravo. Too late. They've seen me. Going dark. If I don't make it out, all the evidence is in the program. Copper Rain will expose them all. That was the last communication before the explosion that leveled half the compound. 3 agents died that night. Adrian was listed among the casualties. Her body reportedly too damaged for identification. The official report blamed a gas leak, and the operation was classified and buried. 6 months later, Dominic was stationed in Washington when he spotted her across a crowded museum gala. Adrian Lenore, very much alive with dyed hair and a new name on her museum donor badge, Adrian Linden. When he confronted her privately, her story poured out. She discovered Kessler was selling weapons schematics to foreign operatives using the arms dealer as an intermediary. When she'd gathered enough evidence, Kessler had tried to eliminate her. She barely escaped the explosion, going deep undercover afterward, fearing Kessler would finish the job if he knew she survived. The evidence is encrypted in the Copper Rain program files, she had told him, eyes darting around the museum's quiet corridor. But I can't access them without alerting Kessler's people. They're watching the system logs. Dominic had made the fateful decision that night to help her and to leave his old life behind. They married 6 months later, Dominic adopting a variation of his cover name permanently. He retired from field work, started a private security consulting business, and believed they were finally safe. The birth of Lily seemed to cement their new beginning. Bella, his daughter from his brief first marriage to his college sweetheart, even bonded with her new stepmother. Life had been normal, perfect even, or so he'd thought. The cell door's metallic clang jolted Dominic back to the present. A new guard stood there, older than the others, with a weathered face and vigilant eyes. "Boss, visitor." Dominic followed the guard down the corridor to a different interview room, smaller, no cameras visible. When the door opened, Wesley Hammond sat waiting, looking exactly as he had 8 years ago when he'd approved Dominic's resignation from the agency. Silver crew cut, wire-rimmed glasses, posture military straight despite his 70 years. "You look like hell, Dominic," Hammond said after the guard left. "Funny what being framed for kidnapping your own child will do to a man's appearance." Dominic remained standing. "Why are you here, Wesley?" Hammond slid a thin file across the table. "Because Copper Rain is active again." Dominic felt the floor shift beneath him. "That's impossible. The program was decommissioned. That's what everyone was told." Hammond removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "The truth is it was refined and compartmentalized. Only 5 people knew of its continued development. And let me guess, Kessler was one of them." Hemming nodded. "He disappeared 3 weeks ago along with the latest version of the program." 3 weeks, Dominic repeated. "The same time the restraining order against me was filed. I don't believe in coincidences." Hammond leaned forward. "Adrian contacted me last month. She was scared, said someone was watching her family. She thought it was connected to Budapest." Dominic paced the small room. "She's working with Kessler now. They're together." Hammond's eyebrows rose. "Are you certain?" "She's pregnant with his child." The words tasted bitter, but something doesn't add up. "She left me a note mentioning Copper Rain and Budapest." "Why warn me if she's part of this?" "Perhaps coercion," Hammond suggested. Kessler always had a talent for finding leverage. Dominic thought of Lily's silence, of Bella's fabricated statement. "My daughters, he's using them against her." Hammond nodded grimly. "There's something else you should know. Dr. Valeria Montrose, the psychiatrist who provided your evaluation, she doesn't exist. The medical license number belongs to a doctor who died 3 years ago. Can you get me out of here, Wesley?" The older man shook his head. "Not officially. The agency won't acknowledge any connection to Copper Rain, but I can give you this." He slid a small brass key across the table. "Evidence locker 247. Your personal effects are there, including something I added this morning. You'll know it when you see it." Dominic pocketed the key. "Why are you helping me? This could end your career." Hammond stood straightening his immaculate suit. "Because I've spent 50 years serving this country, and I'll be damned if I let someone like Kessler corrupt everything we built." He moved to the door, then paused. "Whatever you're planning, remember, Kessler never operates alone. The conspiracy will be larger than you think." After Hammond left, Dominic was returned to his cell. That night, as the facility quieted, he used the thin metal strip he'd pried from his bunk frame to work on the ancient lock of his cell door. Hammond's warning echoed in his mind. The conspiracy will be larger than you think. It didn't matter how large it was. They had taken his family, his freedom, his reputation. They had turned his own daughter against him. And for that there would be no forgiveness, only vengeance calculated and complete. Chapter 4. Escape and Echoes. The county detention center's night shift was understaffed, a detail Dominic had noted during his 3 days of incarceration. Between 2 and 2:30 a.m., the guard at the security desk took his bathroom break, leaving the monitors temporarily unattended. At 2:17 a.m., the makeshift lockpick did its job. Dominic slipped from his cell, moving silently down the corridor. His years of tactical training returned like muscle memory. Stay low, use shadows, time movements between camera sweeps. The evidence locker was in the administrative wing through 2 security doors. The first yielded to the keycard Dominic had lifted from the distracted night guard who delivered his dinner. The second required Wesley Hammond's brass key. Locker 247 contained a manila envelope with Dominic's wallet, watch and house keys. Beneath them lay a small black case he didn't recognize, Hammond's addition. Inside were a prepaid phone, a Glock 19 with suppressor, 2 extra magazines, a set of lockpicks, and $10,000 in cash. A note read simply, "Don't contact me again. Good hunting." Dominic took everything, then accessed the computer terminal in the evidence room. It took him less than 3 minutes to delete the security footage for the past hour, and create a false electronic record showing him still in his cell. By 2:43 a.m., he was outside the facility moving through the darkness toward the staff parking lot. By 2:51 a.m., he was driving away in a nondescript maintenance van, its owner unlikely to discover the theft until morning shift change. As the detention center receded in the rearview mirror, Dominic allowed himself one deep, steadying breath. Phase 1 complete. Now for the harder part, uncovering the full extent of the conspiracy against him and finding his daughters. His first stop was a storage unit rented under an alias from his agency days. The monthly payments were automated through a shell company, the kind of precaution that had seemed paranoid after leaving the field, but now proved prescient. The unit contained everything he needed: weapons, surveillance equipment, documentation for 3 alternate identities, and most importantly, a secure laptop disconnected from any network. If Copper Rain was indeed active again, he couldn't risk using any device that could be remotely monitored. Dawn was breaking as Dominic checked into a motel on the outskirts of town, paying cash under the name Thomas Burke. After securing the room, basic suite for surveillance devices, exit routes identified, weapons positioned strategically, he finally allowed his mind to focus on the information he had. Fact 1. Raymond Kessler, a former CIA operative with a history of selling intelligence, was involved with his wife Adrienne. Fact 2. Someone had fabricated evidence to have Dominic committed, including a false statement from his daughter Bella. Fact 3. Copper Rain, a classified intelligence program Dominic had worked on years ago, was somehow at the center of it all. Fact 4. His 6-year-old daughter, Lily, had been turned against him, refusing to acknowledge him as her father. The key to unraveling it all lay with his daughters. He needed to understand why Bella would make false statements and why Lily had remained silent. Their manipulation was the most personal aspect of this betrayal, and potentially the weak link in his enemy's plan. Dominic's thoughts were interrupted by the prepaid phone vibrating. A text message from an unlisted number. B at Lakewood Psychiatric, not Chicago. L being monitored. A nod in control. Dig deeper. CCE Cordelia Merritt, his former partner from counterintelligence before she transferred to domestic surveillance. Someone he trusted with his life on multiple operations. He texted back, verification code? The response came seconds later. Budapest Tango Whiskey 2 2014, authentic. Only Cordelia would know that code from their last mission together. Need details on L's monitoring, he sent. Not secure. Meet. Sunrise Diner, 3 p.m. Come clean. Dominic checked the time. 7:13 a.m. He had hours to wait and preparation to do. First, he needed to confirm Bella's location. If she was indeed at Lakewood Psychiatric rather than the Chicago art program Adrienne had told him about, that was the thread he needed to pull. Using the secure laptop, Dominic accessed databases that weren't strictly available to civilians. His security consulting business provided legitimate access to some. Others required the specialized software Hammond had included on the computer. Within an hour, he had confirmation. Isabella Marie Voss, age 16, had been admitted to Lakewood Psychiatric Facility as a voluntary patient 3 months ago. The admitting physician was listed as Dr. Valeria Montrose, the same non-existent doctor who had provided Dominic's psychological evaluation. Everything connected back to Kessler. But why go to such elaborate lengths? If Kessler won a Copper Rain, why not simply steal it? Why the complex frame-up involving Dominic's family? The answer had to lie in the program itself. Copper Rain wasn't just a surveillance system, it was designed to identify patterns in seemingly unrelated data points, revealing hidden connections and predicting future movements. In the wrong hands it could expose deep cover agents, reveal military plans, or predict market movements worth billions. But Dominic had been out of the program for years, unless a cold realization washed over him. The final encryption key, the one piece needed to fully control Copper Rain, had been biometrically locked to 5 agents, including himself. His fingerprints, retinal scan and voiceprint were part of the authentication protocol. They needed him alive and in custody to access those biometrics. Lakewood Psychiatric suddenly made perfect sense. Once there, they could extract everything they needed while he was sedated. Dominic spent the next hours meticulously planning his approach. By the time he left for the Sunrise Diner, he had mapped out the security systems at both Lakewood Psychiatric and his former home, studied staff rotations, and prepared equipment for multiple contingencies. Cordelia was already seated in a back booth when he arrived, looking exactly as she had when they'd worked together. Cropped silver hair, sharp features, and observant green eyes that missed nothing. She didn't look up from her coffee as he slid into the seat across from her. "You look terrible," she said, her distinctive raspy voice barely audible over the diner's ambient noise. "Prison does that to a man," Dominic replied, scanning the other customers for threats. "You're taking a risk contacting me." Cordelia's mouth tightened. "We're all at risk. Kessler's reach is longer than you know. He's not just after Copper Rain, he's selling access to the entire intelligence architecture. Tell me about my daughters." She passed him a sugar packet. Hidden underneath was a micro SD card. "Bella was diagnosed with acute psychosis after reporting concerns about you to her school counselor. The reports were fabricated. Someone coached her. The Medicat ion they're giving her at Lakewood keeps her compliant." Dominic's fingers tightened around his coffee mug. "And Lily, that's where it gets complicated. Lily has a tracking implant disguised as a medical device. They told Adrienne it's a specialized insulin monitor for her condition, a condition she doesn't actually have. It allows them to track her and record audio from her surroundings. That's why she wouldn't speak to me," Dominic realized. She was being monitored. Cordelia nodded. "Adrienne figured it out a month ago. That's when she contacted Hammond. She's been playing along with Kessler, trying to protect both girls." She hesitated. "The pregnancy is real, but the timing in her medical records has been altered. The baby is yours, Dom, not Kessler's." The revelation hit Dominic like a physical blow. "Then why?" "Survival," Cordelia said simply. "Kessler threatened to kill Lily if she didn't cooperate. The affair is real. It started as her way to get close to him to find evidence. But somewhere along the way, lines blurred. Stockholm Syndrome maybe, or maybe she's still playing him. Either way, she's in deep. Dominic absorbed this information, recalibrating his understanding of the situation. BSD card, security layouts for Lakewood, staff schedules, access codes, and the most important thing, the location of the real Dr. Montrose. You said she died. Her credentials did, she didn't. Cordelia checked her watch. I need to go, we can't be seen together. The SD card also has a secure contact protocol if you need to reach me. But Dom, she fixed him with an intense stare. Be careful who you trust, this goes higher than Kessler. As she stood to leave, Dominic asked, why are you helping me? You're putting your career at risk. Cordelia's expression softened slightly because I was there when they turned the program against our own people. I watched good agents disappear labeled as traitors because they asked the wrong questions. She dropped money on the table for a coffee and because I was the one who recruited Adrienne. Whatever she's done, whatever she's become, that's partly on me. After she left, Dominic remained at the table, turning the SD card over in his fingers. The information it contained would help him free Bella and possibly clear his name. But first, he needed to understand exactly what had happened to his daughter, and who the real Dr. Montrose was. The card contained one other crucial piece of information, an address in the mountains 3 hours' drive away. A secluded cabin where, according to Cordelia's notes, the real Valeria Montrose had been living under house arrest for the past 2 years, forced to provide her expertise remotely while her identity was used to legitimize Kessler's operations. As Dominic drove toward the mountains, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. His enemies had used his children as pawns in their game. For that, there would be no mercy. Chapter 5. Truths and Deceptions. The narrow mountain road wound through dense pine forest, fall colors painting the landscape in vivid oranges and reds. Dominic drove carefully, alert for signs of surveillance. The cabin's location was remote, exactly the kind of isolation that would make it perfect for keeping someone contained. According to Cordelia's intelligence, the property was guarded by 2 men working in 12-hour shifts, with remote surveillance monitored from an unknown location. The guards were ex-military, competent, but not elite. Dominic parked his stolen van a mile from the property and continued on foot using the forest cover. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees as he moved silently toward his target. Years of field training making him nearly invisible in the dappled shadows. The cabin came into view, a modest frame with a wrap-around deck, solar panels on the roof, and a satellite dish. Through his binoculars, Dominic observed a man in civilian clothes patrolling the perimeter, hand occasionally brushing the sidearm concealed under his jacket. It took Dominic less than 20 minutes to circle the property, identifying cameras, motion sensors, and potential blind spots. The security was good, but designed more to keep someone in them to keep people out. He waited until the guard entered the cabin before making his approach. The first camera went down silently, its wires cut cleanly. The second and third followed in quick succession. By the time the guard would realize the surveillance was compromised, Dominic would already be inside. The lock on the back door yielded to his picks in seconds. Dominic entered silently, Glock in hand, moving through the kitchen toward voices in what must be the living room. Don't care what you have to do, just get fixed, a man's voice was saying, presumably on a phone. We've got 12 hours before the next supply drop, and if those cameras aren't working by then. Dominic stepped into the doorway, weapon raised. Put the phone down and turn around slowly. The guard, a muscular man in his 30s with a military buzzcut, froze. I need to call back, he said carefully into the phone before placing on a coffee table. Hand where I can see them, Dominic ordered. Who's in the house? Just the doctor upstairs. The guard's eyes flicked toward his own weapon, lying on the side table just out of reach. Don't, Dominic warned. Where's your partner? Supply run. Due back at 1800. The guard's training was evident in his controlled responses. Look, whatever they're paying you, I can. On your knees, hands behind your head. Once the guard was secured with his own zip ties, Dominic moved upstairs, clearing rooms methodically until he found what he was looking for. The woman sat in a sunlit bedroom converted to a home office, multiple computer screens displaying complex medical data. She turned as Dominic entered, showing no surprise at the weapon in his hand. Dr. Valeria Montrose was younger than Dominic had expected. Early 40s perhaps, with streaks of premature gray in her dark hair and shadows of exhaustion beneath intelligent eyes. She wore simple clothing, jeans and a sweater, but carried herself with the dignified composure of someone who had refused to be broken by captivity. Finally, she said, her voice calm. I wondered how long it would take them to send someone to silence me. I'm not here to hurt you, Dominic replied, lowering his weapon slightly. My name is Dominic Voss. I believe you know something about my daughter Bella. Recognition flashed in her eyes, the fabricated psychological evaluation. She gestured to a chair. You should sit, Mr. Voss. What I have to tell you will be difficult to hear. Over the next hour, Dr. Montrose revealed the true scope of Kessler's operation. She had been a leading researcher in neuropsychology at DARPA, developing techniques to enhance cognitive resilience in field operatives. When ethical concerns led her to threaten whistleblowing, Kessler had orchestrated her disgrace and apparent death, keeping her alive only because her expertise was still valuable. Your daughter Bella was brought to me 3 months ago. She explained her clinical detachment, clearly a defense mechanism against her own guilt. They told me she was a volunteer for a classified research program. I was to administer a specialized cognitive therapy to enhance her natural talents. What talents? Dominic asked. Dread building, pattern recognition, predictive analysis, the same abilities utilized in the Copper Rain program, but organic rather than algorithmic. Dr. Montrose's hands trembled slightly. It wasn't until later that I realized what they were really doing, using experimental drugs and targeted neural stimulation to access unconscious processing capabilities. They were turning my daughter into a human version of Copper Rain, Dominic said flatly. Dr. Montrose nodded. The program has limitations. It can only predict based on existing data patterns, but the human mind can make intuitive leaps, see connections where computers cannot. Your daughter demonstrated exceptional aptitude. Her voice softened. I'm sorry, Mr. Voss. By the time I understood what was happening, the process was already underway. The false statements about me planted memories under certain drugs. The mind becomes extraordinarily susceptible to suggestion. They created scenarios of ABNE and instability, then convinced her they were real memories. She hesitated, but something unexpected happened. Bella began having visions, accurate predictions that went beyond the parameters of their experiments. She foresaw your escape. She warned them you would come for her. Dominic leaned forward. Is she still at Lakewood? No. They moved her yesterday to a facility called the Pinnacle. It's a private research installation, disguised as a specialized treatment center for gifted youth with psychological issues. And Lily, my younger daughter, Dr. Montrose's expression darkened. The tracking implant is more than surveillance. It's a prototype neuromodulator capable of inducing compliance through mild electrical stimulation of specific brain regions. That's why she wouldn't acknowledge you. They activated it remotely. Cold fury washed through Dominic. Where is this device controlled from? The same place, the Pinnacle. Kessler consolidated operations after your arrest. Your wife is there too, under the pretense of being close to Bella during her treatment. Dominic processed this information, recalibrating his plan. I need everything you have on this facility, location, security, personnel. I can give you that and more, Dr. Montrose said, standing to retrieve a hidden flash drive from inside a hollowed-out book. I've been gathering evidence for months, waiting for an opportunity. There are financial records linking Kessler to foreign intelligence services, medical data on all experimental subjects, security protocols for the Pinnacle. She handed him the drive. But you should know, Kessler isn't the top of this hierarchy. The operation has government sanction, authorization from someone with enough clearance to divert black budget funds and suppress investigations. Who? Dominic asked. I don't have a name, only a code designation in communications. Shepard. She met his eyes directly. Whatever you're planning, you need to understand the resources aligned against you. These people have institutional power, not just operational capability. Dominic pocketed the flash drive. What about you? I can get you out of here somewhere safe until this is over. Dr. Montrose smiled sadly. Where would I go, Mr. Voss? I've been legally dead for 2 years. My reputation was destroyed. My research perverted. She gestured to her computers. Besides, I could be more useful to you here. They still think I'm cooperating. I can feed the misinformation by you time. They'll kill you when they discover your betrayal. Perhaps. Her resolve was evident in her straight posture and steady gaze. But I've been complicit in unspeakable violations of human dignity. Whatever happens to me now is justice in its way. Before leaving, Dominic gave her one of the burner phones from his supplies. If something changes, if you're in immediate danger, call this number. I'll come back for you. Dr. Montrose took the phone, something like hope flickering across her features. Your daughter Bella said something else in her visions. She said you would bring everything down around them. She wasn't afraid of you. She was waiting for you. As Dominic prepared to leave, making sure the guard was securely bound and the doctor had what she needed to maintain appearances, he felt the weight of what he'd learned settling over him. His daughters had been used as experimental subjects. His wife caught in a web of coercion and compromise, all to advance a program that turned human beings into predictive tools for people who recognized no ethical boundaries. The drive back to the city gave him time to examine the flash drive's contents and formulate his approach. The Pinnacle facility was located on a private estate 40 miles outside the city, fortified, staffed with armed security, and equipped with state-of-the-art surveillance. A direct assault will be suicide. But there was another angle. Among the financial records, Dr. Montrose had flagged transfers to a shell company called Helios Consulting. Further digging revealed Helios was hosting a fundraising gala that very weekend, a charity event for innovative neuropsychological research at the Pinnacle. The guest list included wealthy donors, medical researchers, and government officials. The perfect cover for Dominic to infiltrate the organization's public face while identifying key players. It would be dangerous, placing him directly in the lion's den, but it offered the best chance to locate his daughters and gather the intelligence needed for extraction. That night, in a new motel room paid for with a different identity, Dominic prepared for war. He cleaned weapons, studied facility layouts and researched every name connected to the Pinnacle. As dawn broke, he sent a single text message to Cordelia, attending the gala. Need clean identity and invitation, formal attire, 48 hours. Her response came minutes later. Dangerous, facial recognition in use. Alternative approach advised. Dominic's reply was succinct. No alternatives. They have both girls. Proceed. The mission parameters had shifted. This was no longer just about clearing his name or exposing conspiracy. His children were being used as experimental subjects in a program with unknown, but certainly devastating potential. His wife was trapped in a relationship built on coercion and fear. For Dominic Voss, former special operative and father, the objective was now crystal clear. He would dismantle the Pinnacle brick by brick, expose everyone involved regardless of their position or power, and rescue his family. And for those who had orchestrated this nightmare, those who had turned his children into tools and his wife into a prisoner, there would be a reckoning beyond anything they could imagine. Chapter 6. The Infiltration. The Pinnacle Foundation's annual gala transformed the Renaissance Hotel's grand ballroom into a showcase of wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light over guests in formal attire, while waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. A small orchestra played subdued classical music, providing ambient sound perfect for concealing private conversations. Dominic adjusted his bow tie, surveying the room from his position, near one of the massive floral arrangements. The identity Cordelia had provided was impeccable. Preston Walsh, neuropsychology researcher from a prestigious European institute, attending as a prospective collaborator. The invitation had arrived via courier, along with credentials that would withstand scrutiny in a custom-tailored tuxedo with subtle modifications. Reinforced seams concealing thin Kevlar panels, special pockets for equipment, and fabric treated to defeat most security scanners. 3 days of intensive preparation had transformed Dominic physically as well. Professional-grade theatrical makeup had aged him slightly, altered his jawline, and changed his skin tone. A temporary dental prosthetic modified his smile. Tinted contact lenses turned his blue eyes hazel. His normal closed-cropped hair was now covered by a perfectly styled salt and pepper wig. The man in the mirror bore only a passing resemblance to the Dominic Voss wanted by authorities. The security at the entrance had been extensive, but expected metal detectors, ID verification, and discreet facial recognition cameras that Cordelia had warned him about. His altered appearance and the specialized makeup designed to confuse biometric scanning had done their job. He passed through without raising alarms. Now came the more difficult part, identifying key personnel and locating information about his daughters. Dr. Walsh? I don't believe we've met. Dominic turned to find himself face to face with Raymond Kessler. In person, the man was even more commanding than in photographs, tall and distinguished, with immaculate silver hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to deference. His smile didn't reach his eyes, which remained calculating and cold. Mr. Kessler, Dominic replied smoothly, extending his hand. The European accent he'd practiced was flawless. The pleasure is mine. Your work at the Pinnacle has become quite the topic of discussion in international circles. All good things, I hope, Kessler responded, his handshake firm but brief. Revolutionary, according to some, Dominic said, though details seem carefully guarded. Proprietary research, I presume. Naturally, in our field, premature disclosure can be counterproductive. Kessler gestured toward a digital display showcasing the Pinnacle facility, a sleek modern complex nestled against wooded hills. We found that certain therapeutic approaches require absolute environmental control. The traditional hospital setting simply won't suffice. Understand you've had remarkable success with adolescent subjects, Dominic prompted, particularly those with exceptional cognitive abilities. Something flickered behind Kessler's eyes. Interest, perhaps, or suspicion. You seem well informed for someone new to our circle, Dr. Walsh. I make it my business to stay current, Dominic replied easily. My own research focuses on cognitive enhancement through targeted neurochemical modulation. When I heard rumors of your success rates, I knew I had to see for myself. Perhaps you'd be interested in a more intimate tour of our facilities. We're hosting a small group of potential collaborators tomorrow. Nothing too technical, of course, but enough to give you a sense of our approach. It was exactly the opening Dominic had hoped for. I'd be honored. Excellent. My assistant will add you to the list. Kessler's attention shifted suddenly, his expression warming with practiced charm. Here's someone you should meet. Dominic turned to follow Kessler's gaze and felt his carefully maintained composure threatened to crack. Adrienne was approaching, wearing an elegant black evening gown that accentuated the slight curve of her pregnant belly. Her arm was linked with that of a stern-looking older man Dominic didn't recognize. Dr. Walsh, allow me to introduce Mrs. Adrienne Voss, our Director of Patient Relations, and Senator Howard Blackwell, one of our most generous supporters. Dominic bowed slightly, taking Adrienne's extended hand. Her eyes showed no recognition, the professional smile never wavering. Either his disguise was truly exceptional, or she had become an accomplished actress during their years apart. Mrs. Voss, a pleasure. He kept his touch brief, fighting the storm of emotions her presence evoked. Understand you work closely with the younger patients? I do, Adrienne replied, her voice controlled and pleasant. Their emotional well-being is as important as their clinical treatment. We strive to create an environment where they feel secure even as they progress through challenging therapeutic protocols. Senator Blackwell, a powerfully built man in his 60s with steely gray hair and the weathered face of someone who spent time outdoors despite his political career, regarded Dominic with mild interest. European, are you? We don't see many international collaborators in this program. The research crosses borders, Senator, Dominic replied. Cognitive development knows no nationality. Well said, Kessler interjected smoothly. Senator Blackwell chairs the Intelligence Oversight Committee. His support has been instrumental in securing certain regulatory accommodations for our more innovative approaches. A connection clicked into place. Shepard, the high-level official Dr. Montrose had mentioned, a senator with intelligence oversight, would have exactly the clearance needed to divert black budget funds and suppress investigations. The potential applications are simply too valuable to entangle in bureaucratic red tape, Blackwell said, his deep voice carrying the practiced conviction of a career politician, especially given current global tensions. Adrienne's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on the senator's arm. If you'll excuse us, Raymond, we should greet the hard rose before dinner is announced. Of course, Kessler agreed. Dr. Walsh, we'll continue our conversation tomorrow. The tour group meets in the lobby at 10. As they moved away, Dominic noticed Adrienne glance back briefly, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that suggested she might have recognized something familiar, despite his disguise. The remainder of the evening passed in a careful dance of networking and information gathering. Dominic spoke with research staff, security personnel, and administrative directors, building a comprehensive picture of the Pinnacle's operation while maintaining his cover. He was studying a digital display of the facility's therapeutic environments when he spotted her, Bella, his 16-year-old daughter, featured in a video testimonial playing on a loop. The sight of her hit him like a physical blow. She looked thin, her normally vibrant features subdued, eyes slightly unfocused as she mechanically praised the treatment that had given her control over her disturbing visions. "Remarkable case," said a woman who had appeared beside him. "One of our most promising subjects." Dominic turned to find a striking woman in her late 40s observing him. Her name badge identified her as Dr. Diana Lefebvre, Research Director. Subject, Dominic questioned remaining in character. "Not patient," Dr. Lefebvre smiled thinly. "Forgive the clinical terminology, old habits from research papers. Of course, she's a patient first and foremost." The video mentioned visions, Dominic prompted. "Hallucinations, predictive episodes," Dr. Lefebvre corrected. "Quite extraordinary, really. Her brain processes information patterns at a subconscious level, then surfaces conclusions as visual or auditory impressions. With proper framing and chemical support, these episodes could be directed towards specific informational targets." Dominic maintained his professional demeanor while rage built inside him. "Fascinating. Any ethical considerations of such work with a minor?" Something hardened in Dr. Lefebvre's expression. "All our protocols are approved by the relevant oversight bodies, Dr. Walsh. The patients and their families provide fully informed consent." "Of course," Dominic conceded. "I meant no offense. In Europe, the regulations for such advanced work are often prohibitive." Her posture relaxed slightly, one of the many advantages of our unique arrangement here. Senator Blackwell understands the importance of progress unhindered by excessive caution. As the evening wound down, Dominic had gathered critical intelligence. The Pinnacle housed approximately 30 special patients, including both his daughters. Security included armed personnel, electronic surveillance, and biometric access controls. Most importantly, he had secured an invitation to tour the facility itself. Back in his hotel room, Dominic removed his disguise methodically, washing away the theatrical makeup and returning to his own face. He connected the secure laptop to a privacy router and uploaded the evening's recordings captured by microscopic cameras embedded in his cufflinks and bow tie to an encrypted server Cordelia had established. His phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "She recognized you. Careful tomorrow. Trap possible." See, Adrienne had seen through his disguise, but what would she do with that knowledge? Warren Kessler? Or was she still trying to protect their daughters in her own compromised way? He replied, proceeding regardless. "Need facility access. Extraction plan in motion." The pieces were falling into place. Tomorrow's tour would give him the internal layout verification he needed for the final phase, the extraction of his daughters, and the collection of evidence to expose the entire operation. As he prepared for bed, checking and rechecking his equipment for the following day, Dominic allowed himself to think about what would come after. Assuming he succeeded in rescuing Bella and Lily, what then? The conspiracy reached into the highest levels of government. Simply escaping with his children might not be enough to ensure their long-term safety, no. The only path forward was complete exposure and the systematic destruction of everyone involved. Kessler, Blackwell, Dr. Lefebvre, all of them would face justice for what they had done. As for Adrienne, that question would have to wait. Her role in this nightmare remained ambiguous: victim, accomplice, or something in between. Sleep came in brief, tactical intervals. Each time he closed his eyes, Dominic saw Bella's vacant expression in that video, heard Dr. Lefebvre's clinical description of directing his daughter's predictive episodes toward informational targets. Their casual violation of his child's mind only strengthened his resolve. Tomorrow, he would walk into the Pinnacle under the guise of academic interest. He would memorize every corridor, every security measure, every potential extraction route, and then he would tear the entire operation apart. Chapter 7, Unveiling the Truth. The Pinnacle facility rose from the surrounding forest like an architectural statement of power. Glass and steel arranged in precise geometric patterns, security features disguised as design elements. The central building resembled a modern art museum more than a medical facility, with sweeping curves and dramatic angles, creating an impression of innovation and prestige. Dominic, still in his Preston Walsh disguise, stood with 7 other potential collaborators in the main atrium, as Raymond Kessler delivered a rehearsed welcome speech. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased manicured grounds patrolled by security personnel carrying what appeared to be standard sidearms, but which Dominic recognized as military-grade stun weapons designed to incapacitate without leaving evidence of force. "Your phones have been secured in our reception area for confidentiality purposes," Kessler was saying, his voice echoing slightly in a vast space. "We'll return them at the conclusion of our tour. Now, if you'll follow me, we'll begin with our cognitive development wing." The group moved through sliding glass doors into a corridor lined with what Kessler described as observation rooms, clinical spaces where staff could monitor patients through one-way glass. Dominic noted camera positions, door security mechanisms, and staff patrol patterns with practiced efficiency, storing each detail for later use. "Our younger patients respond particularly well to our pioneering neuromodulation techniques," Kessler explained, as they passed a room where children were engaged in what appear to be simple cognitive exercises. "We've seen remarkable improvements in focus, pattern recognition, and information retention." Dominic scanned the children's faces looking for Lily, but his youngest daughter wasn't among them. The knot of tension in his chest tightened. "Do the children live on site?" asked a woman in the tour group, a neuroscience researcher from Johns Hopkins, according to her introduction. "Those in our intensive programs do," Kessler confirmed. "We find environmental consistency crucial to maintaining therapeutic benefits. Family visits are scheduled regularly, of course." The tour continued through increasingly restricted areas, each requiring Kessler's biometric Authenticat ion. The research laboratories featured cutting-edge equipment, much of it clearly military-grade despite its medical Applicat ion. Technicians in white coats moved efficiently between workstations, analyzing data, and preparing what Kessler euphemistically called neurochemical supports. "These are targeted compounds designed to enhance specific cognitive functions," he explained, gesturing to a glass-enclosed clean room where scientists were preparing injections. "Each formulation is personalized to the patient's unique neurochemistry." "Are these FDA approved?" Dominic asked, his accent perfect despite the anger simmering beneath his controlled exterior. Kessler's smile never wavered. "We operate under specialized research protocols, Dr. Walsh. The regulatory framework for pioneering therapies allows certain accommodations for promising treatments." Translation: no oversight, no accountability, Dominic thought. As they approached a heavily secured area marked Advanced Predictive Therapy, Dominic's attention sharpened. According to the facility maps Dr. Montrose had provided, this section housed the patients with exceptional abilities, likely including Bella. "This area is typically restricted," Kessler said. "But today, we're making an exception for our distinguished visitors." The doors whispered open to reveal a circular room with 6 glass-walled chambers arranged like spokes around a central monitoring station. In each chamber, sat a teenager or young adult connected to sophisticated equipment measuring neural activity. Most stared blankly at screens displaying rapidly changing images and data patterns. And there, in the chamber directly across from the entrance, was Bella. Dominic's training was all that kept his expression neutral as he saw his daughter. She sat motionless, electrodes attached to her temples and wrists, and 4-line delivering clear fluid to her arm. Her normally expressive face was slack, eyes unfocused as they tracked data flowing across the screen before her. "Subject 47 is one of our most remarkable success stories," Kessler said, leading the group toward Bella's chamber. 17 years old with extraordinary predictive capabilities, she can process seemingly random data points and extract meaningful patterns with 87% accuracy, far exceeding our algorithmic systems. "Fascinating," murmured another visitor. "Is she conscious of what she's doing?" "On a higher cognitive level, yes," replied Dr. Lefebvre, who had joined the tour at this point. "But we maintain a dissociative state during active processing sessions. It allows her unconscious mind to work without interference from normal thought patterns." Dominic moved closer to the glass, studying the equipment surrounding his daughter. "What's in the 4?" he asked, keeping his voice professionally curious. "A proprietary compound that facilitates the dissociative state while enhancing neural pathway efficiency," Dr. Lefebvre explained. "Completely safe, I assure you." As if sensing his presence, Bella's head turned slightly toward the glass. For a moment her eyes seemed to focus, looking directly at Dominic. A flicker of recognition crossed her features before her attention was drawn back to the screens by a subtle chime. "She appears to recognize you, Dr. Walsh," Kessler remarked, a new edge in his voice. "Unlikely," Dominic replied smoothly, more probably responding to a novel stimulus in her environment. "The human brain is drawn to novelty even in altered states." Kessler studied him for a moment too long before nodding. "Indeed, let's continue to our next area." As the group moved on, Dominic felt certain his cover was deteriorating. Whether Kessler had been alerted by Adrian or had picked up on some subtle tell in Dominic's behavior, time was running short. The final stop on the tour was the facility's command center, a state-of-the-art security and research coordination hub where staff monitored everything from patient vital signs to perimeter security. Here, Dominic spotted what he'd been searching for. A workstation labeled neuromodulation control, where a technician monitored signals from what could only be the implants Dr. Montrose had described. "This is our central nervous system, so to speak," Kessler explained. "From here we coordinate all research activities and ensure patient safety." Patient control was more accurate, Dominic thought, noting the restraint activation controls on another panel. As the tour concluded and the group was led back to the reception area to retrieve their phones, Dominic felt a light touch on his elbow. Dr. Lefebvre had appeared at his side. "Dr. Walsh, Mr. Kessler would like to discuss potential collaboration opportunities with you privately. If you'd follow me, it was a trap. It had to be. But refusing would only confirm their suspicions. Besides, any opportunity to remain in the facility longer served his purposes." "Of course," he agreed. Instead of returning to the main building, Dr. Lefebvre led him along an enclosed walkway to a smaller structure identified as administrative offices. The security here was even more intensive, with armed guard positioned at key junctions and multiple biometric checkpoints. She brought him to an elegantly appointed conference room with a stunning view of the surrounding forest. "Mr. Kessler will join you shortly. May I offer you refreshment while you wait?" "No. Thank you," Dominic replied, already scanning the room for cameras, listening devices and potential weapons. He counted 3 visible surveillance points and suspected at least 2 more concealed in the light fixtures and air vents. When the door opened several minutes later, it wasn't Kessler who entered but Adrienne. She was alone, dressed in a conservative gray suit that contrasted sharply with her usual artistic style. The door closed automatically behind her, the electronic lock engaging with an audible click. For a long moment they simply stared at each other. Then Adrienne spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "They know who you are, Dom. They're coming." Dominic made no move to approach her. "How long have you been working with them?" Pain flashed across her face. "It's complicated, uncomplicated," he said coldly. "Our daughters are being used as lab rats. Bella is drugged into compliance. Lily has an implant controlling her behavior. And you're what? The director of patient relations." "I'm trying to protect them the only way I can," Adrienne hissed, glancing at the cameras. "I've been feeding information to Cordelia for months trying to build a case, but they're always watching." "Is the baby mine?" Dominic asked, the question that had haunted him since learning of her pregnancy. "Yes." Tears welled in her eyes. "Kessler thinks it's his. That's the only reason Lily and I aren't in those chambers with Bella." Domino processed this, recalibrating his understanding of her role. "Where is Lily now?" "In the children's residential wing. She's scheduled for treatment this afternoon." Adrienne moved closer, speaking urgently. "Listen to me. Kessler isn't just experimenting on the children. He's weaponizing their abilities. Bella can predict security vulnerabilities, strategic weak points. The other subjects have different capabilities. Remote viewing, enhanced interrogation resistance, intuitive code breaking. They're creating human intelligence tools, Dom. For whom?" Dominic demanded. "Who's Shepard?" Surprise registered on Adrienne's face at his knowledge of the code name. "Blackwell is the public face, but he takes orders from someone higher. I don't know who." She reached into her pocket and withdrew a small metal object that looked like a decorative pin. "This will deactivate Lily's implant temporarily. Just press it against the base of her skull where the device is located." As Dominic took the device, the door lock disengaged. Adrienne stepped back quickly, composing her features into a professional mask as Raymond Kessler entered, followed by 2 security guards with hands on their weapons. "Mrs. Voss, thank you for keeping our guest company," Kessler said smoothly. "That will be all." Adrienne nodded, giving Dominic one last meaningful look before departing. Kessler took a seat across from Dominic, studying him with cold calculation. "I must admit, the disguise is impressive. Our facial recognition systems flagged some anomalies, but it wasn't until Bella's reaction that we became certain." He smiled thinly. "She recognized her father despite our best efforts to eliminate those memories." "Where's my daughter?" Dominic asked, dropping the accent entirely. "Which one?" Kessler replied. "Bella is quite comfortable in her current role. She's making remarkable contributions to national security. As for little Lily, she's adapting well to our preliminary program. Children her age are extraordinarily malleable." Dominic's hands clenched in a fist beneath the table. "You're experimenting on children, American children. How do you justify that?" "The same way we justify sending young soldiers to war, Mr. Voss. National necessity." Kessler leaned forward. "The human mind is the final frontier of intelligence work. Algorithms can be hacked, satellites can be blinded, agents can be turned. But the capabilities we're developing here, they're changing the entire landscape." "With my daughter as your cornerstone," Dominic said bitterly. "Your daughters possess exceptional neurological architecture, particularly Bella. Her predictive capabilities exceed anything we've seen. The combination of your operational training genetic markers and your wife's creative cognitive patterns produce something extraordinary." Kessler's clinical assessment of his children made Dominic's blood boil. "We had hoped to study you as well to better understand the source attributes. Unfortunately, your escape complicated matters. What do you want from me?" "Cooperation," Kessler replied simply. "Your biometric signatures are still required for certain aspects of Copper Rain. Provide them willingly, and we can discuss improved conditions for your family. Resist, and we'll simply take what we need while you're sedated." The threat was delivered with business-like detachment, all pretense of the charming administrator gone. And if I expose you, all of this. Dominic gestured to the facility beyond the windows. Human experimentation, illegal detention, abandonment of children. Kessler actually laughed. To whom, Mr. Voss? The program has congressional oversight. The intelligence community knows exactly what we're doing here. The public would never learn the truth. And even if they did, national security justifies measures that might seem extreme to those who don't understand the threats we face. He stood straightening his impeccable suit. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Cooperate, and you can even see your daughters supervised, of course. He moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and don't bother looking for escape routes. This room is completely secure, and the exterior doors all require biometric authorization. After Kessler left, Dominic immediately began examining the room more thoroughly. The windows were bulletproof glass, the door lock was state-of-the-art. The ventilation system was too small for even a child to navigate, but Kessler had made a critical error in his arrogance. He'd left Dominic unrestrained, assuming the security systems alone would contain him. For a man with Dominic's training, that was a fatal miscalculation. Working quickly but methodically, Dominic dismantled the conference room's phone, extracting components he could use from his specially designed cufflinks. He removed micro-tools concealed as decorative elements. The room's smoke detector yielded additional useful materials. Within 20 minutes he had fashioned a crude but effective device that would create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to temporarily disable the electronic door lock. The surveillance cameras were a separate problem. They would record his escape attempt, alerting security immediately. Dominic checked his watch. If the facility followed standard security protocols, shift change would occur at 6 p.m., creating a brief window of distraction. It was currently 5:47 p.m. He positioned himself by the door EMP device ready. At precisely 6 p.m. he activated it. The electronic lock emitted a soft click as its circuits failed. Dominic pushed the door open, immediately turning toward the nearest security camera and destroying it with a precisely aimed throw of his impromptu weapon, a sharpened component from the dismantled phone. The corridor was momentarily empty. Dominic moved swiftly, relying on his memorized map of the facility. The children's residential wing was 2 floors down and in the adjacent building. To reach it, he would need to pass through multiple security checkpoints. An alarm began to sound, soft at first, then growing in intensity. They had discovered his escape sooner than anticipated. Dominic increased his pace, ducking into a utility room as 2 guards ran past. Inside he found what he needed, a maintenance worker's uniform and ID badge. Quickly changing, Dominic adapted his approach. Direct confrontation would only alert the entire facility. Instead, he would use the confusion of a security breach to move freely as maintenance personnel responding to the alarm. The disguise worked through the first checkpoint, the guards more concerned with finding the escaped visitor than questioning maintenance staff. At the second checkpoint, connecting the administrative building to the main facility, Dominic encountered heavier security. ID and authorization demanded a guard, weapon already drawn. Dominic presented the stolen badge, keeping his head down. Responding to the alarm in Section C, possible electrical malfunction. The guard studied the badge, frowning. This doesn't show clearance for main facility access. Just following orders, sir, Dominic replied, injecting annoyed weariness into his voice. They said check the junction box in residential. You want to call the supervisor and tell him his maintenance guy can't get to the junction box during an active alarm? The guard hesitated, then gestured to a scanner. Thumbprint. This was the moment of truth. The real maintenance worker's biometrics wouldn't match the badge photo that somewhat resembled Dominic. He had seconds to decide. Dominic moved as if to comply, then stumbled slightly, dropping his tool bag. Tools scattered across the floor. Sorry, he muttered, bending to gather them. As the guard instinctively glanced down, Dominic surged upward, driving the heel of his palm into the man's chin with precise force. The guard collapsed instantly, unconscious but alive. Working quickly, Dominic dragged the guard into a nearby supply closet, securing him with zip ties from his tool bag and gagging him with a cleaning cloth. He took the guard's weapon, access card and radio before continuing toward the residential wing. The facility had moved to full lockdown, security personnel everywhere. Dominic used the guard's access card to enter the service tunnels that ran beneath the buildings, providing maintenance access to utilities. According to the facility maps, these tunnels connected all the major structures. The tunnels were dimly lit and largely deserted during the emergency. Dominic moved swiftly, counting junctions and referring to his mental map. Above him, he could hear the muffled sounds of the alarm and personnel movements. He emerged from the tunnels into a utility room in the residential wing's basement. From there he made his way upward, encountering minimal resistance, as most security forces had been directed toward the administrative building where his escape had begun. The children's residential area resembled an upscale boarding school. Individual rooms with shared common spaces, all tastefully decorated in soothing colors. But Dominic noted the subtle security features, door locks that control from the outside only, surveillance cameras in every corner, and staff stations positioned to monitor all movement. Most of the children were gathered in a central common area, supervised by worried-looking staff. Through a window in the door, Dominic scanned the young faces, searching for Lily. She wasn't there. A voice over the PA system announced, "All therapeutic sessions are suspended. All patients return to assigned quarters immediately. This is not a drill. Dominic ducked into a staff office as children began filing out of the common room, escorted by adults in medical scrubs. He accessed the computer terminal using techniques from his intelligence days to bypass the password protection. The patient directory appeared on screen. Lily Voss, room 214. Status, in session, treatment room 3, cognitive development wing. They had already begun whatever treatment Adrian had warned about. Changing tactics, Dominic made his way toward the treatment areas, no longer bothering with stealth. Time was running out. The guard's uniform and authoritative bearing got him through 2 more checkpoints before he reached the cognitive development wing. Treatment room 3 was at the end of a long corridor. Through the observation window, Dominic could see Lily seated in what resembled a dentist chair surrounded by equipment. A technician was preparing injection while Dr. Lefebvre made notes on a tablet. Rage threatened to overwhelm Dominic's tactical thinking. His 6-year-old daughter, restrained in a medical chair, about to be injected with unknown substances, her mind already manipulated by an implanted device. Drawing the guard's weapon, Dominic entered the room. "Step away from my daughter." Now Dr. Lefebvre spun around, her professional composure shattering at the sight of him. "How did you?" "Shut up," Dominic ordered, moving toward Lily. "Put the syringe down and back away from the equipment." The technician complied immediately, hands raised. Lily's eyes were wide with fear and confusion. The device Adrian had given him felt heavy in Dominic's pocket. "Lily," he said softly, keeping the weapon trained on the adults. "It's Daddy. I know you're scared, but I'm going to help you." No recognition flickered in her eyes, only fear of a strange man with a gun. "Mr. Voss, please," Dr. Lefebvre said, finding her voice. "The implant is active. She can't recognize you while it's functioning. You're terrifying her." "Then deactivate it," Dominic demanded. "I can't. The controls are in the command center." She gestured toward the hallway. "Even if I wanted to help you, we're locked out during security protocols." Remembering Adrienne's device, Dominic approached Lily carefully. "Sweetheart, I need to touch the back of your neck for just a second. It won't hurt, I promise." Lily whimpered, shrinking away from him. "Please, Lily Bean," he whispered using a special nickname for her. "Trust me." Something in his voice seemed to reach her. She stopped struggling, though tears streamed down her face. Gently, Dominic pressed the device against the base of her skull, feeling it vibrate slightly as it activated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lily blinked rapidly, her expression changing from fear to confusion to sudden joyful recognition. "Daddy," she whispered. "Yes, baby, it's me." He quickly unfastened the restraints holding her in the chair. "They said you were a bad man. They said you wanted to hurt me." Her voice trembled. "That was a lie," Dominic assured her, gathering her into his arms. "I would never hurt you, never." Dr. Lefebvre edged, tore an emergency button on the wall. Dominic swung the weapon toward her. "Don't. You'll never get out of here," she said. "The facility is locked down, every exit is secured. Even if you reach the perimeter, the response team will intercept you." "We're leaving," Dominic stated flatly. "And you're coming with us." "Insurance." He gestured with the weapon. Move slowly, with Lily clutching his hand and Dr. Lefebvre walking ahead of them. Dominic began the dangerous journey toward the facility's exit, and toward Bella still trapped in the advanced predictive therapy wing. The first phase of his plan had succeeded. Now came the truly dangerous part, extracting both his daughters from a fortress designed specifically to prevent such escapes. Chapter 8: The Escape. Dr. Lefebvre walked stiffly ahead of Dominic, her posture radiating tension. Lily clung to his hand, silent but wide-eyed as they moved through the facility's corridors. The alarm continued to pulse overhead, its rhythmic sound accompanied by flashing lights that bathed everything in momentary red glows. "Where are we going?" Dr. Lefebvre asked, her voice barely audible over the alarm. "Advanced Predictive Therapy Wing," Dominic replied. "And if you attempt to alert anyone along the way, I'll ensure you never practice medicine again." The threat was deliberately vague, allowing her to interpret it as either professional destruction or something more permanent. From her flinching reaction, she chose the latter interpretation. "The wing will be locked down tighter than anywhere else," she warned. "Those subjects are considered critical assets." "Those children," Dominic corrected harshly, "are victims of criminal experimentation, and one of them is my daughter." They encountered surprisingly few personnel in the corridors. Most security forces had been deployed to secure the perimeter and search the administrative building where Dominic had originally escaped. Those they did pass gave them curious glances, but seemed to assume Dr. Lefebvre was being escorted to safety during the emergency. At the entrance to the Advanced Predictive Therapy Wing, they faced their first major obstacle, a security checkpoint with armed guards and biometric access requirements. Dr. Lefebvre, one of the guards acknowledged, noticing their approach. "We're under orders to maintain position. No one in or out without direct authorization from Commander Hargrove." Dominic kept the weapon concealed against Dr. Lefebvre's back, out of the guard sight, but pressed firmly enough that she could feel it. "Officer Jenkins," she replied, her voice admirably steady despite her situation. "We have a Level 3 protocol in effect. Subject 47 is experiencing precognitive distress related to the current situation. Mr. Kessler has ordered immediate sedation and cognitive suppression." Dominic felt Lily's hand tighten around his at the clinical discussion of her sister. The guard frowned. I don't have that in my orders, doctor. Because it was issued during the lockdown, Dr. Lefebvre said impatiently. Communications are prioritizing perimeter security. Check with Central if you need to. But Subject 47's elevated stress levels are impacting her neural patterns. If she destabilizes completely, 3 months of conditioning will be wasted. The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Your authorization will suffice, doctor, but he stays out here, he added, gesturing to Dominic. No maintenance personnel in the restricted zone during lockdown. Dr. Lefebvre glanced back at Dominic, a question in her eyes. Go, Dominic instructed her, bending to lift Lily into his arms. We'll wait here, remember what we discussed. The implied threat was clear. If she failed to return promptly with Bella, there would be consequences. Dr. Lefebvre nodded once, then placed her palm on the biometric scanner. The doors whispered open, admitting her to the restricted area. Daddy, Lily whispered in his ear, is Bella sick? They keep saying she needs medicine. No, sweetheart, Dominic replied softly. Bella isn't sick, but some bad people have been hurting her. We're gonna take her home where she can get better. The minutes stretched painfully as they waited. Dominic maintained casual conversation with the guards, playing his role as a maintenance worker responding to the emergency while internally calculating escape routes and contingency plans. Finally, the doors opened again. Dr. Lefebvre emerged, supporting a disheveled and disoriented Bella. The teenager's movements were uncoordinated, her eyes struggling to focus. Bella, Lily exclaimed, wriggling to be put down. Family reunions later, Dominic murmured, maintaining his grip on his younger daughter. To the guards he said, Where are we taking her, Doc? Medical isolation, Dr. Lefebvre replied. She's experiencing neural hyperactivity. We need to stabilize her before transport. The guards nodded, allowing them to pass. Once they were around the corner and out of sight, Dominic guided them into an empty office, locking the door behind them. What did you do to her? He demanded, seeing Bella's condition. I had to sedate her partially to justify her removal, Dr. Lefebvre explained, but I used the minimum effective dose. She'll be fully conscious in 20 minutes. Bella's unfocused eyes found Dominic's face. Dad, she whispered uncertainly, is it really you this time? It's me, Bells, he confirmed, heartbreaking at her question. How many false hopes had they given her? They said you were dead, she mumbled. They show me your grave. I'm very much alive, Dominic assured her, and we're leaving this place. All of us. Lily approached her sister cautiously. Bella, do you remember me? For a moment Bella stared at her younger sister in confusion. Then recognition dawned, and she reached out a trembling hand to touch Lily's cheek. Little Lily Pat, she said, using her old nickname for her sister. You got so big. Dr. Lefebvre watched this exchange with an expression that mingled scientific interest with something that might have been remorse. The memory suppression wasn't complete, she observed. Fascinating. The emotional connections must have been too deeply encoded to fully erase. Dominic turned to her coldly. How do we get out of here? Every exit will be guarded. The doctor hesitated, clearly calculating her options. Finally, she sighed. There's a medical evacuation protocol. In case of patients requiring emergency transfer to external facilities, it bypasses standard security, because medical emergencies take priority over other concerns. How do we activate it? We don't need to, it's always active. She moved to the computer terminal in the office, logging in with her credentials. I can schedule an emergency medical transport for Subject 47, Bella, citing neural cascade risk, and they'll just let us walk out? Dominic asked skeptically. Not exactly, Dr. Lefebvre replied, fingers moving rapidly over the keyboard. The protocol requires transport via the medical helicopter. It's always fueled and ready on the landing pad at the East Wing. With my authorization, I can initialize the transport sequence. The system will then clear a path to the helipad and notify necessary personnel. Understanding, Dawn, you're not just giving us an escape route. You're giving us air transport. She nodded, not meeting his eyes. The pilot is automatically notified when the protocol is activated, but there's a 30-minute window before the assigned medical team assembles. Her gaze finally lifted to his. Do you know how to fly a helicopter, Mr. Voss? I do. His special operations training had included rotary aircraft piloting. Why are you helping us? Dr. Lefebvre's professional demeanor cracked slightly because I crossed too many lines in the name of progress. Because I watched what they did to Bella, what I helped them do, and told myself it was justified. She glanced at the young girl, now cradling her sister's head gently in her lap. I've done unforgivable things, Mr. Voss. This doesn't erase them, but perhaps it's a start. The computer chimed as the protocol was accepted. Medical emergency transport for Subject 47 authorized. Proceed to helipad east via medical corridor. See, they'll track the helicopter, Dominic pointed out. Yes. Initially, Dr. Lefebvre agreed, but there's heavy storm activity 30 miles north. Low visibility, electromagnetic interference. It would provide cover for a course change once you're airborne. Dominic studied her, trying to determine if this was an elaborate trap. You're coming with us. She shook her head. No. Someone needs to delay the response. I could buy you maybe 15 minutes before they realize what's happening. She removed her access badge and security token, handing them to Dominic. These will get you through the checkpoints to the helipad. The rest is up to you. Before he could respond, a series of electronic chimes sounded throughout the facility, followed by an announcement. Code Lazarus initiated. All security personnel implement Protocol 7 immediately. Repeat. Code Lazarus initiated. Dr. Lefebvre's face drained of color. We need to move. Now what is Code Lazarus? Dominic demanded, already gathering Lily in his arms while supporting Bella. It means they know you have your daughters. They're initiating contingency protocols to prevent asset loss. Her clinical terminology slipped back into place under stress. Protocol 7 is lethal containment authorization. They would kill children to prevent their escape. Dominic was horrified despite his years of experience with covert operations. Not the children, Dr. Lefebvre clarified grimly. You. Collateral damage would be considered acceptable if necessary to maintain security, but the primary directive will be to eliminate you and recapture your daughters. They moved swiftly through the corridors, following the route indicated by illuminated directional markers activated by the medical transport protocol. Dr. Lefebvre's credentials got them through 2 checkpoints without issue, the medical emergency taking precedence over the security lockdown. The 3rd checkpoint, however, presented a problem. The guard studied Dr. Lefebvre's badge and Dominic's hand with suspicion. Where is Dr. Lefebvre? He asked, hand moving toward his weapon. Stabilizing the patient's neural patterns before transport, Dominic replied smoothly. Time-sensitive situation. She authorized us to proceed ahead while she completes the procedure. The guard's radio crackled to life. All checkpoints be advised. Male subject Dominic Voss is attempting to remove assets from the facility. Lethal force authorized. Repeat, lethal force authorized. Recognition dawned in the guard's eyes as he looked more closely at Dominic's face. Now wiped clean of the maintenance worker's grime, he had used as minimal disguise. Dominic acted instantly, lunging forward before the guard could draw his weapon. A precise strike to the throat silenced any alarm the man might have raised, followed by a powerful blow to the temple that rendered him unconscious. Daddy! Lily's voice trembled as she watched the violence unfold. It's okay, sweetheart, Dominic assured her, dragging the unconscious guard into the security booth. He's just sleeping. Like when you play freeze tag, remember? Bella seemed more lucid now, the sedative wearing off faster than expected. There will be more ahead, she said, her voice stronger. 2 at the final checkpoint. 3, on the helipad itself. Dominic turned to her in surprise. How do you know that? A ghost of a smile crossed Bella's pale face. They made me map security protocols for months. I know every standard response pattern. Her expression darkened. I also know they'll implement the Omega contingency if they can't stop us. We have less than 20 minutes. What's the Omega contingency? Dominic asked, dreading the answer. Remote asset deactivation, Bella replied. The clinical terminology chilling in her young voice. They'll trigger the implants. Mine's deeper than Lily's, connected directly to the limbic system. It would cause massive neural damage. Dominic felt cold fury rising again. How do we prevent that? Distance and shielding, Bella answered. The transmission range is limited to the facility grounds. Once we're beyond the perimeter and above 5,000 feet, the signal strength is insufficient to trigger the devices. They continued toward the helipad, moving as quickly as Bella's condition allowed. The medical evacuation route remained clear, most security forces still searching other areas of the sprawling complex. True to Bella's prediction, they encountered 2 guards at the final interior checkpoint. This time, Dominic didn't wait for questioning. Using the element of surprise, he incapacitated both men with swift, efficient strikes before they could raise an alarm. Beyond the checkpoint lay the helipad access corridor, a long glass-enclosed walkway connecting the main building to the elevated landing area. Through the glass they could see the medical helicopter sitting ready, its distinctive red and white paint scheme gleaming under the exterior lights. Also visible were the 3 security personnel stationed around the aircraft, all armed and alert. We can't fight through them without risking injury, Dominic said, assessing the situation. We need a diversion. Bella stepped forward, her movement steadier now. I can help with that. She moved to the emergency alarm panel near the door and studied it briefly before entering a code on the keypad. Immediately, sprinklers activated throughout the walkway and helipad area, accompanied by a deafening fire alarm. The guards on the helipad looked up in confusion, momentarily distracted. How did you know that code? Dominic asked, impressed. I've seen it used during security drills, Bella explained. They never realized how much information I was absorbing during their tests. They used the chaos of the fire alarm to move across the walkway. By the time they reached the helipad, the guards had moved to the far side, communicating via radio about the apparent malfunction. The helicopter, a modern Airbus H-145 equipped for medical transport, sat with its doors open, ready for patient loading. Dominic helped his daughters aboard, securing them in the passenger seats before sliding into the pilot's position. The control layout was familiar enough from his training. He began the startup sequence, muscles remembering procedures from years earlier. The engines went to life just as one of the guards noticed the unauthorized activity and shouted an alarm. Gunfire erupted, bullets pinging off the helicopter's reinforced body. Dominic completed the pre-flight checks with practiced efficiency, raising the aircraft into a hover as the guards rushed toward them. More security personnel poured onto the roof, weapons drawn. Among them, Dominic spotted Raymond Kessler. His face contorted with rage as he shouted orders to the guards. The helicopter lifted higher, rotating to orient toward the storm clouds visible on the northern horizon. As they gained altitude, Dominic saw Dr. Lefebvre emerge onto the helipad. She looked up at the departing helicopter, then turned deliberately toward Kessler, speaking words Dominic couldn't hear. The last thing Dominic saw before banking away was Kessler's expression changing from rage to shock as Dr. Lefebvre continued speaking. Whatever confession or accusation she was making, it had clearly shaken him. Then they were away, accelerating toward the gathering storm clouds, leaving the Pinnacle behind. In the passenger compartment, Lily had fallen asleep against Bella's shoulder, exhaustion overtaking her after the trauma of their escape. Bella remained awake, staring out the window at the diminishing facility. "They'll come after us," she said with certainty. "Let them try," Dominic replied, setting course for the storm front where they could disappear from radar. "We're not going back, Bella, ever." "What about Mom?" Bella asked quietly. "They'll punish her for helping us." Dominic's hands tightened on the controls. "Your mother made her choices." "She had no choice," Bella countered. "I saw what they did to her. The coercion techniques, the psychological manipulation." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "She fought them, Dad. She protected us the only way she could." The helicopter entered the edge of the storm, turbulence buffeting the aircraft as visibility decreased dramatically. Dominic focused on maintaining stability while processing Bella's words. "We'll talk about your mother later," he said finally. "Right now we need to focus on getting somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find us." Bella nodded, accepting this temporary deferral. "I know where we should go," she said with surprising confidence. "I've seen it. A place they won't look because it doesn't exist in their databases." "Where?" Dominic asked. "The cabin in the northern woods, the one your grandfather left you that you never told anyone about, not even Mom." She met his astonished gaze. "I saw in a vision. It's where we'll be safe while you finish what you started." Dominic stared at his daughter, marveling at the capabilities that had made her so valuable to Kessler and his operation. "And what is it that I've started exactly?" Bella's expression hardened with the determination no 16-year-old should possess. "The destruction of everyone who did this to us, beginning with Senator Blackwell and ending with Shepard." As the helicopter pushed deeper into the storm, electrical interference increasing with each mile, Dominic made a course adjustment toward the remote cabin Bella had somehow seen in her visions. It would provide temporary sanctuary, a place to treat their injuries, remove the implants if possible, and plan the next phase. Because this wasn't over, the escape was just the beginning. Those responsible for turning his children into experimental subjects would face justice or something approximating it. "We'll be safe at the cabin for 3 days, Bella said with the eerie certainty that had made her valuable to the Pinnacle. "After that, we need to move again. They'll expand their search parameters once they analyze your background more thoroughly." 3 days is enough, Dominic replied, thinking of the evidence he had gathered, Dr. Montrose's flash drive, Dr. Lefebvre's access credentials, and most importantly, his daughter's testimony about what had been done to them. "No," Bella said, reading his thoughts with uncanny accuracy. "Evidence won't be enough. They control too many systems, have too many powerful people protecting them. Conventional justice isn't an option, Dad." The implication hung between them as the helicopter continued its journey through the storm, instruments occasionally flickering from the electromagnetic interference. Bella's words confirmed what Dominic had already concluded. This would end only one way, with the complete dismantling of the conspiracy by whatever means necessary. After all, they had used his children as tools. Now they would learn what those same children's father was capable of when everything he loved had been threatened. Chapter 9, No Mercy. The secluded cabin stood nestled among towering pines, its weathered exterior blending seamlessly with the surrounding forest. 3 days had passed since their escape from the Pinnacle. 3 days of recovery, planning, and preparation. Dominic sat at the rough-hewn table, reviewing the evidence compiled on Dr. Montrose's flash drive while monitoring the police and emergency channels on a specially modified radio. So far there have been no public alerts about their escape, no missing persons reports for his daughters, no manhunt for Dominic himself. The absence of official action confirmed what he already suspected. Whatever happened at the Pinnacle would be contained internally, kept from public knowledge at all costs. Bella entered from the cabin's small second bedroom, where Lily was finally sleeping peacefully after days of nightmares and anxiety. The older girl's appearance had improved dramatically. Color returning to her cheeks, movements more coordinated as the drugs cleared from her system. But her eyes remained those of someone far older than 16, carrying knowledge and experiences no child should endure. "Anything?" she asked, settling into the chair across from him. Dominic gestured to the documents spread before him, financial trails, research protocols, patient records, everything we need to expose them, but no clear identification of Shepard. "Blackwell appears to be the highest official directly linked to the program." Bella nodded thoughtfully. They were careful about that. Even in high-level briefings, Shepard was never named, only referenced. She touched her temple unconsciously where the implant remained embedded. "I could feel them watching through this sometimes, monitoring what I saw, what I predicted." Dominic had examined both girls carefully upon reaching the cabin. Lily's implant was relatively simple, a subdermal device at the base of her skull that could be safely removed with basic surgical tools. He had extracted it the first night, destroying the sophisticated transmitter while preserving the evidence of its existence. Bella's implant was another matter entirely. Neural connections extending into her brain tissue, removal requiring specialized equipment and expertise they didn't have. The best Dominic could do was shield it with a signal-blocking mesh heat fashioned from components in the cabin's old television. "I should have protected you both," he said quietly. "I should have seen what was happening." "They were careful," Bella replied. "The manipulations started small. Suggestions planted doubts, controlled information. By the time I realized what was happening, the drugs had already affected my perception of reality." She reached across the table to touch his hand. "You came for us. That's what matters." The cabin's old radio crackled suddenly, breaking their moment of connection. The police band they've been monitoring came alive with activity, multiple units being dispatched to a situation at Senator Blackwell's lake house, 50 miles south of their location. "Do you think," Bella began. Dominic adjusted the frequency, bringing in the transmission more clearly. The dispatcher's voice was tense as she directed emergency services to respond to what was being described as a possible explosion and structure fire at the senator's property. "It's starting," Dominic said grimly. "What's starting?" Lily asked sleepily from the bedroom doorway, rubbing her eyes. Despite everything she'd been through, moments like this, hair tousled from sleep, small hands curled into loose fists, reminded Dominic that she was still just a child. "Nothing, sweetheart," he assured her. "Just some news on the radio." But Bella's expression had gone distant, her eyes unfocused in a way that had become familiar over the past days. The precursor to what she called her sing. "It's not nothing," she said softly. "It's her. She's making her move." "Who?" Dominic demanded. "Mom," Bella answered simply. "She escaped yesterday." They underestimated her grief and rage. Her gaze refocused, meeting Dominic's with unexpected intensity. "She's coming here tonight, and she's bringing everything we need to finish this." "How could she know where we are?" Dominic asked, suspicion immediate and sharp. "The same way I knew," Bella replied. "She's connected to the program too. Not like me, but enough to follow the breadcrumbs you left in your background. The cabin's location was buried in your service records from before you met her." Dominic processed this information rapidly. If Adrian was indeed coming, they needed to be prepared for reunion or confrontation, depending on her true motives. "What happened at the lake house, Bella?" he asked. "What did you see?" Bella hesitated, glancing at Lily. Dominic understood immediately. Whatever she had seen wasn't appropriate for her younger sister's ears. "Lily," he said gently, "could you gather some more firewood from the porch? The nights are getting colder." Once Lily had gone outside, bundled in a too-large sweater found in the cabin's closet, Bella spoke in a hushed tone. Mom confronted Blackwell at his lake house. She had evidence, recordings of his private conversations with Kessler about the program. When he refused to help her, refused to shut down the operation, she paused, struggling with the vision. She had explosives, military grade. She must have taken them from the Pinnacle security stores during the chaos of our escape. "Is she?" Dominic couldn't finish the question. "Alive?" "Yes, but Blackwell isn't." Bella's expression remained detached, clinical. The explosion was targeted. Precise, she made sure only he was in a blast radius. Dominic had known Adrian as an intelligence operative before their marriage, had seen her tactical capabilities firsthand. But this level of calculated violence suggested a desperation he'd never witnessed in her. "When will she arrive?" he asked, already mentally cataloging the cabin's defensive positions, escape routes, and available weapons. "After midnight," Bella replied. "She's being careful taking indirect routes. She believes she's being followed, but she's determined to reach us first." The remainder of the day passed intense preparation. Dominic secured the perimeter, setting up rudimentary alarms that would warn of approaching vehicles or individuals. He checked and rechecked the limited weapons available. His service pistol with remaining ammunition, hunting rifles found in the cabin's gun safe, and improvised devices fashioned from household materials. Lily sensed the tension but remained remarkably resilient, finding comfort in small tasks and the security of having both her father and sister nearby. As night fell, Dominic settled her into bed with promises that tomorrow would bring greater clarity. "Is Mommy really coming?" she asked as he tucked the blankets around her. "Maybe," Dominic answered honestly. "We'll know more in the morning. Is she still good, or did they make her bad like they try to make me?" The innocent question carried the weight of Lily's traumatic experiences. Dominic chose his words carefully. "Your mother loves you very much, Lily. Sometimes adults make complicated choices when they're trying to protect the people they love." This answer seemed to satisfy her, and soon she drifted into sleep, exhausted by the day's emotions. Outside, Dominic and Bella maintained a vigilant watch from the cabin's front porch. The forest around them dark and silent except for occasional wildlife sounds. The night air carried the first hint of winter's approach, crisp and pine-scented. "They won't stop looking for us," Bella said quietly, "especially now with Blackwell dead. Shepard will accelerate the contingency plans." "Let them try," Dominic replied. "We have what they fear most, evidence and witnesses. Once we identify Shepard, we can expose the entire operation." Bella turned to him, moonlight illuminating her solemn expression. "It won't be that simple. The program has support at the highest levels. People who believe the ends justify any means. They'll discredit us, silence us, or worse. Then we'll need leverage they can't ignore," Dominic acknowledged. "Something that makes exposure more dangerous to them than negotiation." The conversation halted abruptly as one of Dominic's perimeter alarms activated. A soft rhythmic tone indicating movement on the access road approximately half a mile from the cabin. Minutes later they heard it. The distant sound of an engine, then headlights briefly visible through the trees before being extinguished. Single vehicle, Dominic observed, retrieving his weapon from its holster. Get inside, wake Lily, and move to the fallback position we discussed. Bella hesitated. It's her, she said with certainty, but she's not alone. Before Dominic could respond, another perimeter alarm activated. This one from the opposite direction, indicating approach from the forest rather than the road. Multiple threats, Dominic concluded grimly. Inside, now they retreated into the cabin, securing the door and dousing all lights. Dominic moved Lily, still half asleep, into the hidden root cellar discovered during their exploration of the property. Bella joined her sister in the underground space, armed with one of the hunting rifles and instructions to remain silent and hidden until Dominic returned where their emergency signal was given. Positioned near a window with clear sight lines to both approaches, Dominic waited in the darkness, weapon ready. The night vision equipment salvaged from his emergency supplies gave him a crucial advantage, revealing the forest in eerie green clarity. The vehicle had stopped approximately 200 yards from the cabin, concealed among the trees. A solitary figure emerged, moving with the cautious precision of military training. Even at this distance, Dominic recognized Adrienne's distinctive gait, the slight favor to her left side from an old injury sustained during their time in Budapest. Simultaneously, three figures approached from the foresight. Tactical movement patterns, weapons visible, using the trees as cover, not local law enforcement. These were specialized operators, likely from whatever unit provided the pinnacle security. Dominic made his decision instantly. Adrienne was approaching alone, apparently unaware of the other team closing in from behind the cabin. Whatever her intentions, she was moments away from walking into an ambush. Moving silently through the cabin, he exited through a concealed back door, circling wide to approach the tactical team from their flank. Their attention was focused entirely on the cabin and Adrienne's approach from the front, a fatal error. The first operative never saw Dominic coming. A precise strike to the base of the skull rendered him unconscious instantly. Dominic relieved him of his tactical radio and advanced weapon before securing him with zip ties from his own equipment. The second and third operatives were positioned 20 yards apart, maintaining communication via hand signals. Dominic waited for the moment when both were focused forward, then moved. The second operative went down as silently as the first. The third detected something amiss and began to turn, but too late. Dominic's strike caught him mid-rotation, and he crumpled to the forest floor. With the immediate threat neutralized, Dominic activated the tactical radio, listening to the operational chatter. A fourth team member, presumably their commander, was positioned farther back coordinating the approach. Alpha Team, report status, came the tense command. Visual on a female target approaching cabin entrance. Confirm positions for intercept. When no response came, the commander's voice sharpened. Alpha Team, acknowledge immediately or on calling in backup. Dominic calculated his options. Additional forces would complicate an already dangerous situation. He keyed the radio. Alpha Team secure, he replied, mimicking the clipped professional tone of tactical operators. Female target appears to be alone awaiting your command. A brief pause, then maintain positions. I'm moving up to your location. Perfect. Dominic concealed himself along the commander's likely approach path and waited. Less than 2 minutes later, a figure moved through the trees. Compact, efficient, wearing tactical gear with command insignia. Dominic allowed him to pass, then followed silently until the man paused to scan the area where his team should have been visible. The commander sensed something wrong and began to reach for his sidearm when Dominic struck. Unlike with the others, he didn't aim for incapacitation. This was the leader, the one with direct connection to the Pinnacle's command structure. Dominic needed information. A precisely applied chokehold brought the man to his knees. Dominic maintained just enough pressure to induce compliance without unconsciousness. One sound above a whisper, and you won't make another, Dominic said softly. Not if you understand. The commander nodded once, his training evident in his controlled breathing despite the precarious position. How many more teams are approaching this location? Dominic demanded. Just us, the man replied, voice barely audible. Advance recon. Main force is 30 minutes behind awaiting confirmation. Who sent you? Direct orders from Shepard, the commander answered. Priority 1, retrieval of the Voss children. Priority 2, elimination of Dominic Voss. Priority 3, capture of Adrienne Voss for program continuation. Program continuation. Dominic tightened his grip slightly. Explain, the pregnancy, the commander gasped. Third generation subject with optimal genetic markers. Critical to Phase 3 trials. Cold fury washed through Dominic at the realization. They intended to use his unborn child as the next experimental subject, building on whatever they had learned from Bella and Lily. Who is Shepard? Dominic demanded. Name and location. The commander hesitated, training warring with self-preservation. I don't know the name. Communications are compartmentalized. But the control center is at Fort Braxton, the old DARPA wing that officially closed last year. It was enough. Dominic applied additional pressure, and the commander slipped into unconsciousness. After securing him with the others, Dominic moved quickly toward the cabin's front approach, where Adrienne was now less than 50 yards from the entrance. She moved cautiously but with purpose, a backpack slung over one shoulder, and what appeared to be a tactical case in her right hand. Her face, visible briefly as she passed through a patch of moonlight, showed the strain of recent days. Exhaustion and determination etched into features once so familiar to him. Dominic circled to intercept her before she reached the cabin's motion-sensing lights. Moving deliberately into her path, he kept his weapon lowered but ready. "That's far enough," he said quietly. Adrian froze, her free hand moving instinctively toward her side before stopping. "Dom," she breathed, her voice a mixture of relief and wariness. "You're alive." "No thanks to your associates," he replied coldly. "There was a tactical team in the woods behind the cabin. They've been neutralized, but more are coming. I know, I've been tracking them since the lake house." She made no move to approach further. "I have maybe 20 minutes before they realize their advanced team isn't responding." "Bella said you killed Blackwell." A flicker or something regret satisfaction crossed Adrian's face. He was going to activate Bella's implant remotely. "I had no choice." "There are always choices, Adrian, like the choice to sleep with Kessler while our daughters were being experimented on." Pain flashed in her eyes. "You have every right to hate me, but right now we don't have time for this conversation." She held out the tactical case. "This contains everything. The complete Copper Rain program data, experimental protocols, subject records, and most importantly, proof of Shepard's identity and direct involvement." Dominic made no move to take it. "How did you get this?" "I've been gathering evidence for months. After your escape with the girls, Kessler was desperate to secure remaining assets. He grew careless, left systems accessible that would normally be locked down." Her expression hardened. "I was director of patient relations, remember? I had authorization to access most restricted areas. Authorization they never revoked because they thought I was still under their control." "And were you under their control?" Adrian's eyes met his directly. "I did what was necessary to protect our daughters, to survive, to find a way out." Her voice cracked slightly. "I made compromises I'll live with for the rest of my life, including with Kessler." "Yes." She didn't flinch from the accusation, including with Kessler. Before Dominic could respond, his tactical radio crackled to life. "Command to Alpha Team. Report status immediately. Main forces mobilizing based on your last known coordinates." Adrian's eyes widened. "They're coming now. We need to move." She extended the case again. "Take it. Get the girls somewhere safe. I'll create a diversion. Lead them away from your escape route." "Why would you do that?" Dominic demanded, still not reaching for the case. "Because they're my daughters too," she replied simply. "And because I won't let them take this baby." Her free hand moved to her stomach in a protective gesture, not for their experiments. Not for anything. Tension stretched between them. Years of trust shattered. Betrayal both real and perceived. And in the middle, their children's safety hanging in the balance. "The team commander said something about the baby being a third-generation subject," Dominic said finally, watching her reaction closely. Horror and confirmation mingled in Adrian's expression. "So that's their plan. I suspected as much when Dr. Lefebvre started insisting on specialized prenatal monitoring." She took a breath, steadying herself. "All the more reason to end this now." A distant sound caught their attention. The unmistakable rhythm of helicopter rotors approaching from the south. Tactical extraction team, Adrian identified immediately. Heavy response, not just retrieval. "They're not taking chances this time," Dominic made his decision. Inside, now they moved swiftly to the cabin. Dominic securing the door behind them while keeping Adrian in his peripheral vision. Trust had not been restored, merely suspended in the face of immediate danger. "Daddy." Lily's small voice came from the hidden cellar entrance, now slightly ajar. "Is Mom here?" "Yes," Dominic confirmed, moving to help his daughters from their hiding place. "But we need to leave immediately. We have unwelcome company on the way." Bella emerged first, the hunting rifle still clutched in her hands. Her eyes locked on her mother, expression unreadable. Lily followed, her initial hesitation giving way to a rush of emotion as she flung herself toward Adrian. "Mom," she cried, arms outstretched. Adrian dropped to one knee, embracing her younger daughter with fierce protectiveness. "Oh, Lily," she whispered, "my brave girl." Bella maintained her distance, watching the reunion with complicated emotions playing across her face. When Adrian looked up at her older daughter, tears glistened in her eyes. "Bella," she said softly, "I'm so sorry for everything they did to you, for not being strong enough to stop it." "You did what you could," Bella replied. Her voice neither forgiving nor accusatory, merely stating an assessment reached through her unique perception. "I saw the choices they gave you. None of them were good." The helicopter sound grew louder, now distinguishable as multiple aircraft approaching from different directions. "They're establishing a perimeter," Dominic stated, checking his weapon and gathering essential supplies. "We have minutes at most." Adrian opened her backpack, removing several devices Dominic recognized as military-grade signal jammers. "These will buy us a little time, disrupt their communications and tracking capabilities." She activated one, placing it on the cabin's main table. "The rest should be positioned around the perimeter." Dominic nodded once. "Bella, help your mother with those. Lily, come with me. We need to get the emergency supplies from the back room." As they separated to their tasks, Dominic led Lily to the cabin's rear storage area, quickly gathering the bug-out bags he prepared during their days of hiding. Inside each was survival gear, emergency rations, and crucial evidence they compiled. "Daddy," Lily whispered, as he checked the contents of her small backpack. "Is Mom staying with us now?" The innocent question carried weight far beyond Lily's understanding. Dominic chose his words carefully. Right now we all need to work together to get somewhere safe. After that we'll see. When they returned to the main room, Bella and Adrian had placed the signal jammers and were studying a topographical map of the surrounding area. There's an old logging road 2 miles east, Adrian was saying, finger tracing the route. Poorly maintained but passable with 4-wheel drive. My vehicle is hidden a half-mile from here in that direction. What kind of vehicle? Dominic asked, assessing their options. Modified Range Rover, reinforced chassis, run-flat tires, scrambled transponder. Adrian met his questioning look directly. I've been planning contingencies for months, Dom. The distant crack of a rifle shot cut through their conversation, a warning that their pursuers were now within range of the cabin. They're trying to flush us out, Dominic observed. Standard containment protocol. They'll establish firing positions around the perimeter, then advance methodically. The root cellar, Bella suggested suddenly. It connects to an old drainage tunnel. I saw it when we were hiding. It looks long abandoned, but it might lead away from the cabin. Dominic recalled noting the tunnel entrance, but had dismissed it as too narrow for practical escape. Now with helicopter spotlights beginning to sweep the forest canopy around them, any option was worth considering. Show me, he commanded. Bella led them back to the root cellar, pulling aside shelving to reveal a narrow passage partially obscured by decades of debris. It heads east toward a stream bed according to the slope, probably built for flood mitigation originally. More shots rang out, closer now, accompanied by amplified voices demanding their surrender. This is our best option, Adrian confirmed after examining the tunnel. Lily and Bella can navigate it easily. You and I will be tight, but it's manageable. And if it's blocked further in, Dominic questioned, then we'll deal with that when we reach it, Adrian replied pragmatically. Right now staying here means capture or worse. The decision made, they moved quickly. Lily went first. Her small size an advantage in the confined space, with Bella following closely behind. Adrian transferred the tactical case to a waterproof bag from her backpack before entering the tunnel third. Dominic prepared to follow, then paused, struck by a tactical opportunity. Moving swiftly back to the cabin's main room, he gathered the remaining signal jammers and the small incendiary devices he'd prepared as last resort defensive measures. Positioning them strategically throughout the cabin, he set a delayed activation sequence. 3 minutes, enough time for him to join the others in the tunnel, but not enough for their pursuers to conduct a thorough search. When the device is triggered, the resulting electromagnetic pulse would disable any technology within 50 meters, while the incendiaries would create enough smoke and confusion to mask their escape route without necessarily destroying the cabin itself. Dominic entered the tunnel just as the first tactical teams breached the cabin's front entrance. Pulling the hidden cellar door closed behind him, he crawled through the narrow passage, guided by the faint glow of emergency lights Adrian had placed at intervals ahead. They had progressed perhaps 200 yards when the devices activated. Even through earth and stone they felt the concussive force of the electromagnetic pulse followed by muffled shouts of confusion from the direction of the cabin. That should keep them occupied, Dominic commented as he caught up to the others at a wider section of the tunnel where they could briefly rest. Adrian nodded approvingly. Clever, non-lethal, but effective disruption. Her tactical assessment reminded Dominic of their shared past, partners in intelligence operations before becoming partners in life. The tunnel continued eastward for nearly a mile, gradually widening as it approached the stream bed Bella had predicted. When they finally emerged, they found themselves in a ravine sheltered by overhanging trees, the cabin, and pursuing forces now well behind them. The vehicle is that way, Adrian indicated, getting her bearings quickly. About half a mile through these woods, they moved as rapidly as Lily's endurance allowed. The sounds of pursuit growing distant rather than closer. Evidence that Dominic's diversion had successfully confused their trackers. Within 20 minutes they reached Adrian's hidden Range Rover, camouflaged under branches and forest debris. Everyone in, she directed, clearing the camouflage and accessing the vehicle. We need to be moving before they reorganize their search pattern. As the girls settled into the back seat, Dominic circled to the driver's side. I'll drive. Adrian paused, then nodded once, surrendering the keys before taking the passenger seat. The silent exchange spoke volumes about the tenuous nature of their collaboration, necessary but fraught with unresolved tensions. The Range Rover moved smoothly through the difficult terrain, its modifications allowing for silent running when needed and impressive power when obstacles presented themselves. Adrian navigated from memory, guiding them to the logging road she'd identified earlier, and then on to progressively larger roads leading away from the search area. Where are we going? Dominic asked after they put 20 miles between themselves and the cabin. There's a safe house in North Dakota, Adrian replied, completely off official records, established years ago as part of a contingency network most of the agency has forgotten exists. Whose safe house? Dominic demanded, suspicious. Cordelia's, Adrian answered. She maintained a network of emergency locations after the Budapest operation went wrong, places known only to her and those she trusted implicitly. In the back seat both girls had fallen asleep, the adrenaline crash following their narrow escape leaving them exhausted. Bella's head rested against the window, while Lily was curled against her sister's side. Their physical closeness a reminder of the bond that had helped them survive their ordeal. Dominic glanced at them in the rearview mirror, then turned his attention back to Adrian. The tactical case, what exactly does it contain? Everything, she replied simply. The complete copper rain algorithmic structure, personnel files on everyone involved in the Pinnacle's operations, medical records of all experimental subjects, and most importantly, direct communications between Shepard and the program directors. Who is Shepard? Dominic pressed, the question that had driven him since learning of the code designation. Adrian's expression darkened. Vice President Lawrence Carmichael. The revelation hung in the air between them. The Vice President of the United States, second in command of the executive branch, former director of the National Intelligence Agency, and longtime advocate for innovative approaches to national security. That's why the program had such extensive protection, Adrian continued. Why congressional oversight was circumvented. Why normal ethical protocols were suspended. Carmichael has been the architect from the beginning, seeing human cognitive enhancement as the next frontier in intelligence operations. And our daughters were just test subjects to him, Dominic said, the cold fury that had driven him these past days crystallizing into something harder and more focused. Not just test subjects, Adrian corrected grimly. Prototypes. The program's ultimate goal is to create intelligence assets with predictive capabilities that can be controlled remotely. Human companions to the algorithmic systems, filling the gaps where artificial intelligence fails. Dominic absorbed this information, calculating implications and possibilities. We can't go to conventional authorities with this, not with Carmichael's involvement. No, Adrian agreed. But we can go to the press, selected journalists with the courage to publish regardless of pressure. With the evidence in that case, even Carmichael can't silence every outlet. And how many would believe it? Dominic countered. How quickly would we be discredited as conspiracy theorists or foreign agents? How many media organizations would risk government sanctions to publish allegations against the vice president? Adrian studied him carefully. What are you suggesting instead? Direct action, Dominic stated flatly. We use the information not to expose, but to leverage, to eliminate the threat at its source. Assassination. Adrian's voice was neutral, neither approving nor condemning. That's a line neither of us has crossed before. They cross lines first, Dominic replied, his tone leaving no room for debate. When they took our children, when they used them as experimental subjects, when they planted devices in their brains. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. There's no going back to who we were before this happened, no returning to normal lives. Adrian was silent for long moments, her gaze directed at the darkened road ahead. Finally she spoke. Cordelia's safe house has equipment, secure communications, everything we need to plan an operation. She paused. But we would need help. Specialists with skills beyond what even we possess. I have contacts, Dominic said. People who operate outside conventional boundaries. People who understand that sometimes justice requires measures beyond what the system allows. As they drove through the night, the sleeping forms of their daughters in the back seat, a constant reminder of what they were fighting for, an unspoken understanding formed between them. Whatever had happened between Dominic and Adrian, the betrayals, the compromises, the broken trust was secondary to the threat facing their children. For now they would be allies again, partners in an operation with the highest possible stakes. But Dominic harbored no illusions about reconciliation. The woman beside him had made choices he could never forgive regardless of her reasons, or the pressure she faced. The cold calculation taking shape in his mind included not just those who had created and administered the Pinnacles program, but everyone who had participated in or benefited from his family's suffering. Everyone would pay, including, eventually, Adrienne herself. 2 months later, Vice President Lawrence Carmichael stood at the podium in the White House press room, announcing his resignation for health reasons. His face, broadcast on televisions nationwide, showed the strain of recent weeks. Unexplained security breaches, leaked financial irregularities, and mysterious deaths among his closest associates. What the cameras didn't capture was the thin scar at the base of his skull, identical to those once worn by Bella and Lily Voss. The mark of an implanted device now controlled not by government operators, but by someone with more personal motivations. In a secure facility hundreds of miles away, Dominic Voss watched the press conference on a bank of monitors surrounded by equipment salvage from the Pinnacle's now defunct operation. Beside him, Bella monitored neural feedback patterns from the vice president's implant. Her unique abilities now directed toward securing her family's safety rather than advancing government intelligence operations. It's working, she confirmed, studying the data streams. He's following the script exactly as programmed. After this he'll implement the final failsafes, destroying remaining research, eliminating electronic trails, transferring funds to our secure accounts. And he'll have no memory of doing any of it, Dominic noted with grim satisfaction. Poetic justice. The door opened behind them, and Cordelia entered. Her silver hair now dyed brown as part of her own necessary disappearance. The last of Kessler's team has been located and neutralized, she reported. No witnesses, no connections to us. And Dr. Montrose, Dominic asked, safely established in Geneva under her new identity. She's already making progress on reversing the long-term effects of the experimental drugs. Cordelia glanced at the screens. Carmichael looks terrible. The implant takes a toll, Bella observed dispassionately, especially when the subject resists programming. He fought harder than the others. Dominic's plan had unfolded with methodical precision over the past weeks. Using the evidence Adrian had secured, combined with Bella's unique insights and Dominic's tactical expertise, they had systematically dismantled the Pinnacle's operation from the top down. Key personnel had been given a choice: cooperation or consequences. Most chose cooperation, finding themselves implementing actions that undermine their own program before choosing to disappear into new identities far from their former positions of power. Those who resisted discovered that the same technology they had deployed against innocent children worked equally well when turned against its creators. "Where are Lily and Adrian?" Dominic asked, noting their absence. "Garden Pavilion," Cordelia replied. "Physical therapy session. Lily's making remarkable progress." The physical and psychological damage inflicted on both girls would require years of recovery, but already significant improvements were evident. Lily had regained her natural exuberance. The trauma-induced silence replaced by curious questions and occasional laughter. Bella's recovery was more complex, her abilities permanently altered by the experiments, her perspective forever changed by what she had experienced and what she could now perceive. Dominic turned his attention back to the monitors as Carmichael concluded his resignation statement. The plan was nearly complete. Those responsible had been punished. His daughters were safe. The threat to his family had been eliminated with the same clinical efficiency that the Pinnacle had once applied to its subjects. There remained only one loose end: Adrian. "I'm gonna check on Lily," he told Bella, squeezing her shoulder gently as he passed. "Monitor the neural patterns for another hour, then we'll commence the final sequence." Outside, the secure compound sprawled across 20 acres of isolated countryside, its perimeter protected by both conventional and highly advanced security measures. At its center, visible from the main building's windows, stood the Garden Pavilion, a glass and steel structure housing a swimming pool, exercise equipment, and rehabilitation facilities. Dominic found Adrian and Lily by the pool, his younger daughter demonstrating her improving swimming skills, while her mother offered encouragement from the edge. The domestic scene might have appeared normal to an outside observer, a mother supporting her child's achievements, both smiling in the afternoon sunlight. But Dominic saw the reality beneath the surface. Adrian's involvement in their revenge operation had been crucial. Her knowledge of the Pinnacle systems, her connections within the intelligence community, her willingness to implement the most morally ambiguous aspects of their plan. She had proven herself a dedicated mother, willing to do anything to protect her children, and yet the fundamental breach remained. Each night, Dominic remembered her in Kessler's arms, imagined her providing information about his daughter's progress, pictured her watching as they were subjected to experimental procedures. Whatever her reasons, whatever pressures or threats had influenced her choices, some betrayals went beyond forgiveness. "Daddy," Lily called, noticing his approach. "Watch me swim across." He smiled, genuinely proud of her progress. "Show me, sweetheart." As Lily demonstrated her improving technique, Adrian rose to stand beside Dominic. Her pregnancy was now visibly advanced, the curve of her abdomen prominent beneath her loose clothing. "Carmichael resigned," Dominic said quietly. "The final phase begins tonight." Adrian nodded, understanding the implications. "And afterward, we disappear. New identities, new location. The children will be safe." "We," she repeated, noting his choice of pronoun. "All of us." Dominic turned to her, his expression revealing nothing of the decision he had already made. "You gave me the evidence we needed. You helped implement the plan. Your cooperation has been appreciated." She studied his face, reading between the carefully chosen words, "but not forgiven." "No," he confirmed simply, "not forgiven." Understanding passed between them, the acknowledgement of an inevitable conclusion both had seen approaching since their reunion at the cabin. Whatever their past, whatever their temporary alliance against a common enemy, the damage done was irreparable. "I never expected forgiveness," Adrian said after a moment. "Only the chance to protect our children." Her hand moved to her stomach. "All our children." "And you've done that," Dominic acknowledged. "They're safe now because of both of us." The conversation was interrupted as Lily climbed from the pool, beaming with pride at her accomplishment. "Did you see Daddy?" "I swam all the way without stopping. I saw," he confirmed, wrapping her in a towel. "You're getting stronger every day." Later that evening, after both girls had gone to bed, Dominic found Adrienne in the compound's communication center, finalizing the encrypted instructions that would complete their operation against Carmichael and the remnants of his program. "It's done," she said as he entered. "After tonight, Copper Rain will exist only in our secured files. No backups, no remaining infrastructure, no personnel with operational knowledge." "Good." Dominic moved to the adjacent workstation, checking the progress of their own disappearance preparations, new identities, secured funds, transportation arrangements. "I've prepared separate documentation for myself," Adrian said quietly, indicating a flash drive on the console. "Different identity, different destination." Dominic looked up, meeting her gaze directly for the first time in days. "You knew?" "Of course I knew," she replied without rancor. "I've known since the cabin, since I saw your eyes when I mentioned what happened with Kessler." She touched the flash drive gently. "You can check everything. No connections to you or the girls. No way to trace. I'll disappear completely." "The baby," Dominic began, "will be safer with me away from what's coming next." Adrian interrupted. "We both know you're not finished. Carmichael was just the beginning. There are others you still plan to hunt. People who funded the program, scientists who developed the protocols, officials who provided protection. She wasn't wrong. Dominic's vengeance would not be complete until every person connected to his daughter's suffering had faced consequences. When? He asked simply. Tomorrow, Adrian answered. After the final confirmation from Carmichael, I've arranged transportation to a location known only to me. Dominic nodded once, acceptance rather than agreement. The girls will ask questions, tell them the truth, or as much of it as they can handle, that I love them, that sometimes parents make impossible choices. Her composure cracked slightly. That I hope someday they might understand even if they never forgive. The echo of his own unforgiving nature in her words was not lost on Dominic. For all that had happened between them, for all the betrayal and pain, they remained connected by their children, and by a shared understanding of the world's darker realities. I want to try to find you, he stated, not as a threat, but as a fact. I know. Adrian's smile held sadness rather than bitterness, ruthless to the end. It's what will keep our daughters safe in this world. She gathered her materials and moved toward the door, pausing briefly beside him. For what it's worth, Dominic, I never stopped loving you. Even when I was with him, even when everything else was a lie. Dominic said nothing, his expression unchanged as she left the room. Whatever emotions her words evoked remained locked behind the armor he had built since discovering the truth about the Pinnacle and his family's involvement. The next morning, Adrian was gone, leaving behind only a letter for each of their daughters and the flash drive containing her new identity information. Proof that she had truly disappeared rather than aligning with any remaining enemies. Bella accepted the news with the eerie prescience that had become her natural state. I saw this coming, she told her father as they stood in what had been Adrian's room. Paths diverging, different futures. Are you angry? Dominic asked, studying his daughter's expression. No, Bella replied thoughtfully, sad but not angry. She did what she thought necessary. Just as you're doing, just as I would do. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting wisdom beyond her years. We're all changed by what happened. None of us can go back to who we were before. Lily's reaction was more emotional. Tears and confusion. Questions Dominic couldn't fully answer without exposing truths her young mind wasn't ready to process. He held her as she cried, promising that her mother loved her, that adults sometimes needed to make difficult choices. In the days that followed, their operation concluded with clinical efficiency. Vice President Carmichael implemented the final phase of their plan before suffering a stroke that left him permanently incapacitated, unable to communicate the truth even if he retained the memory of what had been done to him and by whom. One by one, the remaining individuals on Dominic's list met their fates. Some through financial ruin, others through precisely engineered accidents, still others through exposure of unrelated crimes that nonetheless removed them from positions of influence. 3 months after Adrian's departure, Dominic sat in the Secure Communications Center, studying the final name on his list. Raymond Kessler, former head of the Pinnacle, architect of the experiments performed on Bella, and the man who had taken advantage of Adrian's vulnerability. Kessler had proven the most elusive target, disappearing completely after the Pinnacle's collapse. No financial transactions, no digital footprint, no confirmed sightings. You won't find him that way, Bella said, entering the room silently as was her habit now. He's gone completely off-grid using techniques he learned from people like us. Dominic turned to his daughter, noting the calm confidence that had replaced her earlier trauma-induced anxiety. Do you know where he is? Bella smiled enigmatically. Not specifically, but I know how to find him. She set a folder on the desk before him. He has patterns he doesn't even recognize. Habits from childhood that survival hasn't erased. I've been tracking them, extrapolating. Dominic opened a folder, finding a detailed analysis of psychological patterns, geographical probabilities and behavioral predictions. It was the kind of work the Pinnacle had forced from Bella under drug compliance, now produced voluntarily and with far greater sophistication. You want to find him? Dominic observed. Why? The same reason you do, Bella replied simply. He needs to pay for what he did, to me, to Lily, to all of us. She touched the analysis she had created. I'm not asking to be part of what happens after we find him, just to be part of finding him. Dominic studied his daughter, no longer the traumatized 16-year-old rescued from the Pinnacle, but not yet the woman she would become. Something in between, stronger than anyone her age should need to be, with abilities no one should possess, driven by experiences no one should endure. We'll find them together, Dominic agreed, making the decision that would define their relationship moving forward. Not just father and daughter, but partners in the final act of vengeance against those who had harmed their family. 6 weeks later, Raymond Kessler entered a remote cabin in the mountains of northern Montana, believing himself secure in his carefully constructed disappearance. He had no way of knowing that every step of his journey had been anticipated by a teenage girl whose mind he had helped to transform, or that her father waited in the shadows of the cabin's interior. The confrontation was brief, the outcome never in doubt. Dominic Voss, once an intelligence operative trained in covert operations, now the father shaped by rage and retribution, ensured that Kessler's end served as both justice and warning to anyone who might consider continuing the work of the Pinnacle. When it was over, when a last name on his list had been crossed off, Dominic returned to the secure compound where Lily waited under Cordelia's protection. Bella met him at the perimeter gate, her unique perception having identified the exact moment of his arrival. It's done, she said. Not a question but a confirmation. It's done, Dominic agreed. Together they walked toward the main building where Lily would be waiting with questions Dominic had prepared careful answers for. Truths she could accept now with others reserved for when she was older. The vengeance was complete. Those who had threatened his family had been eliminated or neutralized. Those who had betrayed him had been banished from his life, regardless of their reasons or regrets. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was absolute. Dominic Voss would never forgive those who had harmed his children, never forget the betrayals that had nearly destroyed his family, and never hesitate to exact justice on anyone who threatened what remained of the life he had rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. Some called it ruthlessness. He called it love in its purest, most uncompromising form. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good luck.
After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind, or maybe it has brought back some old memories. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories, and they connect all of us. Everyone has their own unique journey in life, and we all try to understand the world in our own way. These kinds of moments remind us that we are all human, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and always learning something new. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with your friends. Your thoughts and feedback are always valuable to us, as they motivate us to create even better content. Every story has its own unique angle, and our goal is to understand everyone's perspective and make our content diverse and relatable. Stories like these help us realize that life's journey is different for everyone, and by hearing other stories, we learn something new. You can also share your own stories with us. Your experiences are valuable to us as well, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave your feedback. We aim to create content that brightens your mind and gives you new ideas every time. If you've already seen this video before, your feedback is still important. With every piece of feedback, we can improve our content and bring a new perspective to our viewers. Today, what we saw was just a small part of the many stories shared on Reddit and across the world. It's a reminder of how we all try to understand life by sharing our experiences with each other. This video was only an example of how we try to connect with others through storytelling, learning about different sides of life. We hope to continue sharing such stories that help us all learn and grow together. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. If you haven't already, please like and follow for more amazing content. Your support keeps us going, and we will strive to bring you more thought-provoking and heartwarming stories. Until next time, take care and stay curious. **